Trucker Dump, episode 142. On today's show, we'll be continuing the series where we highlight unique trucking jobs. This time, Joshua Knode will tell us about expedited trucking. But before we get to that, we're going to learn about a new trucking podcast, truck-only lanes, truck-only tolls, dangerous parking, and an early road check blitz this year. We'll also hear about a new trade agreement, ELD yard moves, internet scams, 18-year-old truckers, trucks with no drivers, and how $50 and some elbow grease could save your life. And we've got a few quick emails about recruiting and, of course, tailgating. This episode of Trucker Dump is sponsored by the Pilot Flying J app and Volvo Trucks.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hey there, Trucker Dumpers. You know, I'm going to do my best to try to not burp into the microphone because, well, I am stuffed to the gills. The evil overlord and I just got back from a Texas Roadhouse. Where we had, well, what'd she have? The steak tips, which I highly recommend. But if you have not had the fall off the rib bones, you need to try those. I once had a dispatcher tell me they were so good and they were so tender that if you take the rib and you tap it on the plate, the meat will fall off of it. I didn't believe him, but he was right. So highly recommend those ribs. And of course, you have to go there for the honey. What is it? The cinnamon honey butter and the rolls. Oh my God. We usually fill up on those and then we just bring the rest of our meal home and eat it at home later on. Anyway, for those of you new to the show, you're probably thinking, what is this guy talking about food? Well, I thought it only natural because, last episode I was talking about having food poisoning. So this time it's a good experience. Although I will have to say, Texas Roadhouse will not be the subject of today's Trucker Grub because, well, you can't fit a truck into our Texas Roadhouse. Anyway, matter of fact, I don't even know if there's going to be a Trucker Grub in this segment. That's how prepared I am for it. So there's what you have in store. So anyway, those who are new to the show, my name is Todd McCann. I'm a 22-year trucker. I am a blogger, a podcaster, freelance writer when someone wants to pay me to do it, and I've written 2 trucking ebooks, one called How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job, and the other is Trucking Life. You can check those both out on abouttruckdriving.com or Amazon or iBooks or wherever you get your books. So hey, I hope all your nipples are still intact because, man, it has been cold out there recently. I was up in Minnesota last week and I honestly think it was the coldest I've ever been in, but the evil overlord, which is my wife and my ex-co-driver, by the way, she told me that we have been in colder conditions, but I don't remember it. I do remember it being windier, but I don't ever remember it being colder than what it was up in Minnesota the other day. It was minus 17 degrees with a wind chill of minus 44. And man, oh man, that is a whole different kind of cold. It is just unbearable. Oh, I was glad to get out of it. That's the kind of cold where once you get into, the temperature's like 20 degrees above zero, you feel, hey, it's getting like a heat wave, But anyway, hopefully most of that is past. What did what did the groundhog say this year? I don't know what old Phil said this year. It doesn't matter anyway. He's wrong about 48% of the time, I think, or 51% of the time. I can't remember what they said, but he's wrong most of the time. What do you expect? It's a dang groundhog. And before we get to the news, let me give you a couple of podcasting announcements. I guess they're not really news, so to speak, although one is advertising and is news, but the other is not. The trucking podcast, you know them, Buck and Don over there. It's been at the truckingpodcast.com. They changed the name of their podcast to Trucking After Hours. So if you're wondering where that feed has gone and you're in there and you're not seeing updated episodes and maybe you've not quite caught up, they announced this a few weeks back that they changed the name of it. I'm not really sure why, honestly, but just search for your podcasting app for Trucking After Hours. And from what they say, it's going to be pretty much the same show. They just needed to change names. Again, not really sure why, but listen to the show and you'll find out. Also in podcasting news, there is another new trucking podcast out. And quite honestly, this one is kind of a big thing for trucking, I think. And that's because it is a collaboration between Overdrive Online, which, or Overdrive Magazine, I should say. Overdrive Online is the one you always hear me mention in the show notes. They are in partnership with PRX's Radiotopia. Now, if that name is not familiar to you, you're probably not in the podcasting, you don't pay too much attention to the podcasting industry, and that's unsurprising. But, and you're not really supposed to follow that stuff if you're not a podcaster, so to speak. But anyway, if you've ever heard of the show, the podcast 99% Invisible, it's a very popular show. It's hosted by Roman Mars. And, it's very, very popular, like way up there along the lines of, This American Life and stuff like that. It's well produced. It's got all of the, it's not like my podcast where I'm just one guy talking on here and a few sound effects here and there, for humor or whatever. It's like, they've got background music for ambiance and to set the tone and sound effects in the background. And, they have big teams to work on these things so they can be very well produced. Well, again, Radiotopia and Overdrive have released a new one about trucking called Over the Road. They just released their first episode out on February 20th, and it looks like it's going to be every other week, and it's going to be an 8-episode series, basically. So, the reason I mention is because, I listened to the first episode. It's really well produced. Like I said, it's more, like I said, it's more professional TV style. It's like the guy who does, the narration is Long Haul Paul. I can't pronounce his last name. So you'll have to go to the link in the show notes to look, to find out his last name. But, he's very like this, and he talks more, like in a radio type voice and that kind of a thing, but he's interviewing people. Like the first show they go to the Matt's truck show down in, in Louisville that they have every single year. And, it just looks like it's going to be a very interesting thing for the trucking industry, because if it's done by Radiotopia, it's probably going to be heard by millions of people. And if that interests people in trucking, that's great, not only for our industry, that people might be more interested in our industry in general, but also, it will just bring more attention, I think, to trucking podcasts. At least that's what I'm hoping. So, anyway, this is basically, this podcast is basically just telling people what a life of over the road is, and, different trucker stories and things that have happened. And like they focused a little bit on ELDs and how that's affecting us in the industry. And, it's just going to be interesting to see where they take this. I've already subscribed to it. Again, if you want to subscribe to that yourself, and you should, because it's trucking and you should support it, and you've already listened to this podcast. So why don't you go over there and hear how a real good, a well-produced podcast is made. But then again, they have millions of dollars and I don't. So anyway, go check out in your podcasting app. Again, the podcast is called Over the Road, and you'll find it. It's from Overdrive and Radiotopia. All right, now let's get on with the actual news. Okie dokie. This first news story is actually, it's kind of a public service announcement, actually, just like I did a minute ago. But this is being reported on thetruckersreport.com. You'll notice this, you'll know this actually if you've been up in the Chicago area recently. But apparently there are thieves breaking into trucks so often at 2 different truck stops that, they're putting out road signs, those big blinky signs, electronic blinky signs. Wow. These big electronic signs, warning drivers to be careful, when they're in there, because, truckers are getting robbed, not just theft, but, truckers are getting robbed also. Now, actually, these aren't truck stops, so to speak. These are 2 rest areas along I-80 in Illinois. And even though the article doesn't say this, I've also been seeing them along those truck plazas up there on the toll road, like 294, I think the Hinsdale, and one of the other ones, I can't remember which one it was, but there's a couple of them that I've seen that have these signs out there also warning you that, hey, we've had truck thefts. Of course, they're saying cargo thefts, but what they're not telling you is they're often getting the truck driver too, and that's just not safe. So if you can avoid these areas, try to park outside, you know, so you don't even have to worry about this stuff. Apparently, the two rest areas that are affected right now, though, are the ones on I-80 near Minooka, Illinois. That's somewhere around like the 115, I want to think. It's like between the two pilots, you know, between the one in Minooka and the one in, what's the name of that town? Morris, Illinois. That's what it is, Morris. So anyway, it's affecting the eastbound and the westbound. And like I said, again, some of the toll plazas up in Chicago. So basically, if you can, just avoid parking anywhere near Chicago, if at all possible. And well, let's face it, that's always good advice. So anyway, check out the link in the show notes for the article that was again found at thetruckersreport.com. Next up, I'm going to give you a really early warning about something. You know that roadcheck inspection blitz that happens every June? Well, they're moving it up. They said it will work better for them for weather conditions. So, you know, those guys aren't out there sweating their butts off, in June. They're moving it up to the beginning of May. I don't know if this is going to be a continual thing, but they're doing it this year. Anyway, this will be held May 5th through 7th. This is going to be for 72 hours. And this year they are going to focus on driver requirements. And that means like they're going to be checking out your CDL to make sure it's current, your medical cards, make sure you're wearing your seatbelt, and make sure that your records of duty status are updated and that your ELD is in compliance. Of course, they're going to be checking all the other stuff too. You know, if they pull you in, they might give you a full truck inspection and stuff too, but they're going to be focusing mostly on the driver this year. And the reason they're going to do this is because last year when they had this road check, they had more than 12,000 trucks put out of service, and they had 2,700 drivers that had violations, and most of them, the vast majority of them, were hours of service violations. Some of them had to do with had the wrong class of license, like maybe they were driving a Class A vehicle, but they only had a Class B, and the third in line was false logs. So I don't know how you're faking these e-logs, but well, actually, I do kind of know because I had an officer show me one time when he was waiting for he had inspected me, found something wrong with my truck, shut me down out of service. So I was just standing there waiting on a service guy to come out, and he was actually showing me in the computer, some of the ways that drivers are falsifying their logs, and, you know, they're going in and changing their mileage, and they're claiming that they're doing, they're not advancing the load or delivering freight, but they actually are while they're on PC, that kind of a thing. Personal conveyance for the non-truckers. It's a, on-duty status for us. Or I guess personal conveyance is actually an off-duty status, which is why it's so darn illegal, because you're delivering freight while you're off-duty. Anyway, just be prepared for this. Again, it's coming up May 5th, and of course, I will be giving you another reminder probably every single month, so you'll be prepared for this. We had a driver on our fleet who had accidentally let his driver's license expire, and that can happen if your company isn't all over it. Ultimately, it is the driver's responsibility. So you need to make sure that that stuff is up to date. Different states have different time limits and everything. So just as soon as you hear this, pull out your driver's license. Don't hit anybody if you're driving, but as soon as you get stopped, pull out your driver's license, check that expiration date, and also check the date on your DOT physical, just to be sure, because it's coming right around the corner, May 5th through May 7th. Found this article on overdriveonline.com. Check out that link in the show notes. And for those of you who don't know what the show notes are, just look around in your podcast app and you will find them somewhere. Swipe left, swipe right, scroll down, it will be a list of links for all of these articles. And sometimes there'll be some photos and stuff like that in there. And if you are listening on the website, well, you probably already see it because all the show notes are listed at the bottom of each blog post. And this is episode 142. So it would be TD142 is what you'll search for when you go to abouttruckdriving.com. Enough of that. Hey, this next one is a really interesting story. Found it on Channel 7, 11alive.com. This is down in Georgia somewhere. Not sure where that is. But anyway, the article is called Georgia Planning First in Nation Truck-Only Interstate Lanes. So here's the thing. Apparently there was a giant fiery wreck on Interstate 85 somewhere down near Atlanta recently. It involved a tanker truck and 2 other cars, and 2 people died in that accident. That is sad. Of course, that's always sad when we lose a life, especially, when there's a truck involved and we're going to get blamed for it. Well, this has brought up more attention to this idea of truck-only interstate lanes. So what they're proposing is to add new truck-only lanes between McDonough and Macon along I-75. That's south of Atlanta. It's supposed to cost about $1.8 billion, and it's supposed to be estimated opening in 2028. So I don't know exactly when they're planning on starting this, but again, this is just proposed right now. I don't know if this actually has gone through. It actually says down here, funding for the truck-only lanes was approved by the Georgia General Assembly in 2015. So they've been planning to do this for a while, but I guess they're just going to, kick it in and get busy with it. They're saying these truck traffic-only lanes will reduce traffic by about 40% on I-75 and by the year 2030. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. I don't know why it's supposed to. If they're going to finish it in 2028, I don't know why it wouldn't reduce traffic immediately. Why are they saying by 2030? I don't know. Anyway, apparently I'm not smart enough to know what's going on here. But anyway, my thoughts on this were that I hate to sound like I don't care, but yes, there have been some people die in accidents because trucks are on the road, supposedly. Now, whose fault was this accident? It doesn't say. We do know that anywhere between like 75 and 90% of the time, it's been proven over and over in studies that it's the car's fault. So separating trucks, I get what they're trying to do, separate the two. But my concern is, what are they trying to do? Are they going to put one truck lane in and then we all just have to follow each other and stay in that lane and we have no option? We're just stuck behind, it won't bother me because I go 63 mile an hour, but say, you're a 70 mile an hour truck and you got to get behind, some truck that's only going 60 mile an hour. Are you just stuck there? It doesn't say whether it's going to be 1 lane or 2 lanes wide. My other concern is that, again, I just hate to sound awful here, but I realize lives have been lost. But this is $1.8 billion to construct a road to save lives. And I get that human life is priceless in a way, but that's a lot of money to spend to save a few lives. Now, I know, again, that sounds awful, but you have to look at the trade-offs. I mean, would you spend $1.8 billion to make sure that no one was ever, had food poisoning and died? I mean, it does happen, but it's not that often, quite honestly, that it's a truck involved in these accidents. So I don't really know what to think about this. Am I totally off base? I really want to hear your opinion on this. Write in or send me an audio comment and tell me what you think. Is it worth it to have truck only lanes? And remember, this $1.8 billion is just for a 40-mile stretch of highway around Atlanta on one highway. I mean, we're not even talking about 20 or 85 around there or any of the other metro areas around the nation. It's just this one section is costing $1.8 billion. That's a lot of dang money. But anyway, I want to hear your thoughts on this. Go and check out the link in the show notes. And let me know what you think. Wow. Now I probably got a bunch of people hating me because I have no heart. All right, let's get back to overdriveonline.com and talk about some toll roads. By the way, I don't know if I forgot to mention, but in the last story where the Georgia things, that is not tolls. I just wanted to make sure I stressed that. I may have said it, may have not. Those are not toll roads. Those are just truck-only lanes. God knows what they're planning on doing with those eventually. I suppose they could toll them, as so many have. And that leads into this story because if you remember on the last podcast, we were talking about the Connecticut governor who was trying to push through truck-only tolls in Connecticut. And they decided to kind of just go ahead and push through, even though Rhode Island has a lawsuit against it right now for doing the exact same thing. Well, apparently there's a bit of good news, a bit of reprieve, because the Connecticut governor says that he cannot get the legislature to act on this. They can't get him to basically crap or get off the pot. So he's tired of messing with it. So he's come up with a different fund. He's come up with a different way to fund their infrastructure, to get the highways worked on and stuff like that, which is, in my thought, hey, if you could have done that in the first place, why are you trying to toll trucks? Of course, because why wouldn't they? Most truckers who are going to be paying that toll don't live in Connecticut, so it doesn't hurt their constituents that much, but it does hurt everybody else. So, hey, if you can get your money from everybody else, why wouldn't you do it? So anyway, there is a brief reprieve on this, and who knows if they'll ever come back to it. But for now, thank God, no extra tolls in Connecticut. Woohoo! But hey, don't get too excited, because our next story from overdriveonline.com is bad news. All right. Apparently, OIDA, which is the Owner Operators Independent Drivers Association, filed a lawsuit against the state of Pennsylvania a while back because Pennsylvania keeps raising their tolls for their turnpike. And they're saying that it's that they are excessive increases, and not only that, but the money that they're getting from these is actually being diverted and not used for the toll, which the way I understand it, the toll money is supposed to go towards the toll. That's why you're paying the toll. But like like the federal government, like every state government out there, they take the fuel taxes and they take all the stuff from the transportation. They get money from transportation, for fuel taxes and for tolls and stuff like that. And they use it for other projects, which is not the way it's designed. But anyway, the bad news here is this went all the way to the Supreme Court. Well, not really. They looked at it and decided that they were not going to see the case, which really sucks because it kind of just opens up the floodgate. It sets a precedence that now these states can do whatever they want with their tolls, and the Supreme Court doesn't care enough about it to see what's happening. Now, of course, Pennsylvania came out and said, we realize that after this lawsuit happened that we need to look at this because it's, clearly it's a major concern and we'll look at this. What that means is we're saying this now because it makes us look good, but we're just going to keep, doing our tolls, and we'll probably keep adding on now that we have proven that the Supreme Court doesn't care. So anyway, there's your bad news. Followed up with, had some good news, got to follow up with some bad news, right? Why can't there just be a whole bunch of good news? One of these episodes, just one, nothing but good news. Nah, it's never going to happen. Don't get your hopes up. All right, moving on. Hey, today's episode is brought to you by a new sponsor, the Pilot Flying J app, saving you time at the pump and money in the store. So today I want to tell you a little bit about the app's cool new features and how it can make life easier on the road for you. Just like always, you're going to save tons of money on things you need, like snacks and drinks to keep you fueled up. Who doesn't need that? As well as gear you might need for your rig. And there are new specials added daily, so there's always new ways to save at Pilot Flying J locations across the country. You simply tap a button in the app to save a special offer, and you'll get the discount when they scan the barcode in the app. Easy peasy. But what about when you need to pull off the road for a little R&R or to grab some fuel? Well, the app's got you covered there too. If you get to a Pilot or Flying J and can't find a free parking space, or you already know there won't be parking by the time you get there, or, hey, what if you're just super lazy and you don't want to walk very far to go take a shower? Well, Prime Parking is always there for you. The app lets you see available spots along your route so you can reserve parking that works for you, whenever and wherever you need it. And when you have to fuel up in the rain, or when it's freezing outside, like it has been lately, the app's mobile fueling feature can help you keep it in that warm cab as long as possible. You just follow the prompts in the app to get the pump started, then hop on out, fuel up, and get on with your day. Man, I love that feature. And hey, you don't even have to worry about keeping track of your paper receipts. Digital copies are on file in the app for easy access. And let's not forget, when it's time to freshen up for a shower, we do shower truckers, the app can help you with that too. While you're relaxing in your cab, reserve an available shower or get in line if they're all busy. It'll even let you know when it's your turn right on your phone. How cool is that? And as always, the more you fuel with Pilot Flying J, the more rewards points you earn while you save money on food, showers, and Wi-Fi. So what do you got to lose here, driver? Go ahead and visit the App Store or Google Play Store and download the Pilot Flying J app today. And thanks to Pilot Flying J for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump. And now, back to the news. We've all heard of the North American Free Trade Agreement, right? This is the trade agreement that went in place in 1994 between the United States, Canada, and Mexico, to discuss how everything would be traded and exported and imported between the three countries. Well, that is kaput. No longer. Trump signed a new thing into existence. It is called the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA. Well, we can't say NAFTA anymore, so what do we say? USMCA? I don't know. It doesn't quite have a ring to it, does it? Anyway, they are saying basically this is not completely scrapping the North American Free Trade Agreement. It is kind of tweaking it, basically. There's going to be a lot of things that stay the same. A lot of, pretty much Canadian fleets coming into the United States is going to remain the same. Mexican carriers are going to be able to operate here. Right now, I guess there's about 60 Mexican carriers ranging from, one truck owner operators to, a truck fleet that has 394 trucks in it. So, and they say of course they will, adjust that based on, threats and things like that. Like if there's a big threat from Mexico or something like that they find out, they can restrict that number down. They do stress that there is no threats right now, so everything's going through as planned. Apparently Mexico has already signed this, and the Canadian government is expect to ratify it pretty darn quick. So, heck, by the time, this was written on February 14th, so it could already be in place. I'm not sure on that. Anyway, as far as freight goes, it says in the short term, we're not really going to see a lot of increase in freight for all of us truckers to haul. But they said over time it will, because all this uncertainty about getting a new trade agreement signed between U.S., Mexico, and Canada was causing like business to go offshore to China and stuff like that. And of course, everybody knows we're having kind of a trade war with China right now. So now that we've got all this kind of lined up, they're thinking that a lot of that business that was going to China will go to Mexico now. So whether you think that's a good thing or not, at least we're keeping it all right here on our continent, and that means us truckers will have more freight to haul, hopefully. Anyway, they're just speculating on this, as they always do. But anyway, I just thought I would mention that. If you have more interest in all the details of this, go and check out the link in the show notes. Again, that's on overdriveonline.com. All right, next up, let's do our mandatory autonomous vehicle report. We always got one of those. This one's on the truckersreport.com. Here's the deal. For the first time ever, the federal government has approved a waiver which will allow a fully autonomous and fully driverless vehicle to operate on public roads. Yep, you heard that right. No steering wheel, no brake pedal, not even a seat. This was approved by the NHTSA, which is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And the waiver was for a robotics company called Neuro. They have a vehicle they are calling R2, which is kind of cute if you're a Star Wars fan, but I'm not sure if what it's doing is cute. Anyway, they're saying what it is designed for is a delivery vehicle. So basically they said Walmart and Domino's have already signed on to make deliveries for them. They're first going to roll them out in Houston, Texas. They're going to deploy up to 5,000 of these units over the next 2 years. Now, here's the kicker. They will be autonomous completely, no driver in them whatsoever, but they are only allowed to travel up to 25 miles per hour. You thinking what I'm thinking? I don't want to get behind one of these stupid things. And I'm also thinking, hey, if Domino's is delivering my pizza with this, how freaking cold is that pizza going to be by the time it gets to me at 25 mile an hour? No, I understand why they're trying to be safe on this. And I'm sure it's going to make them like travel a lot of, side streets and stuff, no interstates, things like that. But here's the way this is going to work. Talk about futuristic. Basically, it'll be programmed in where these deliveries go, and there'll be some sort of system in their conveyor belt or whatever that will put your product like up into this compartment. And then when the vehicle pulls up in front of your house, I guess it doesn't say how it's going to notify you, but I'm guessing, you'll have an app or something like that. And it'll say, hey, your delivery truck's here. You go out, you enter a code like on a keypad on the truck. And then like these gull wing doors will open up, which is kind of like you see on Back to the Future, how the DeLorean, they lift up the doors lift up from the bottom, basically. And anyway, there's supposed to be like a climate controlled area where, so I guess that's the idea. If your pizza's hot, it'll be hot in there. I don't know how that's going to work, but or your Walmart groceries or whatever, they'll all be in this one area. You can grab them out, the door will close automatically and it goes off to the next delivery. Well, that's going to be interesting. I can't wait. Well, you want to take some bets on how long it is before we have the first rear end accident of some person driving along, looking at their cell phone, texting their buddy, and they plow into the back of one of these things. I'm betting it'll be within the first month. We'll see. I'm sure we'll hear about it. We will. Okay, this next story is from Transport Topics. I believe that's where it's from, ttnews.com. Link in the show notes. I'm going to really have to wing it. Not that I don't always wing it on here, but I'm going to really have to wing this one because for some reason this article will not pull up. Everything else works on the internet except for this page. So I'm wondering if they're doing maintenance or something like that. Anyway, from what I remember, this is pretty easy. This is basically an article talking about the U.S. Senate is proposing a bill that's going to allow interstate truckers under 21, which this is an old topic. We've talked about this many times before. But I just wanted to bring it up again because this is kind of an in-depth article. Of course, what they've always said, is that, we have a shortage of drivers and everything. And well, okay, we won't go into that argument. There is or there isn't. Either way, the ATA is the ones who was really pushing this. That's the American Trucking Association. And they represent most of the big fleets. So of course they need more. They feel like they need more drivers when probably in reality, all they need to do is treat their drivers better and they will get more drivers. But anyway, that's beside the point. Again, the thing they stress is that, they're trying to say it's not unsafe for an 18-year-old to drive a semi because quite frankly, they already do it and they are accurate in that. And I've said this on this podcast before and it just doesn't make any sense to me, honestly, why. Okay. First, there's a military aspect. We have 18-year-olds driving semis in the military. Okay, fine. But we have them driving right now in our towns and our cities. It's just that they aren't allowed to cross state lines. And that's never made any sense to me. I mean, if you're in Illinois and you're in Chicago and you're driving a truck in all that traffic and everything, why is it such a big deal for you to cross the border and go to Gary, Indiana? I just don't understand it. It makes no difference whatsoever. So I say if you're going to let 18-year-olds drive at all, let them drive on the open road, across interstate lines. And of course, they are putting in here, again, I wish I could have the details for you, but they're saying that there will be guidelines on how much training a 18-year-old driver, or under 21, I should say, would have, with a supervised driver, and get some really good training. But quite honestly, they should be having those kind of standards for everyone, not just, new drivers under 21. But anyway, again, I'm sorry I can't pull this article up. I don't know what's going on with that website, but the link is in the show notes, and I'm sure by the time you're listening to this, you'll be able to click on it and go and read up more about this. And I'd like to hear your thoughts. I haven't heard anybody recently talking about whether they think under 21 should be able to drive trucks or not. And I'd love to hear that. Send me your thoughts, your comments on that at abouttruckdriving.com. You can leave a link in the, or you can leave your comments in the show notes, or you can just write me at truckerdump@gmail.com. Actually, that's the preferred way. And of course, audio comments are always welcome. So again, if you want to learn more, check out all the gory details by clicking the link in the show notes. By the way, it's been brought to my attention that I say show notes a lot on this podcast, and, well, it is what it is. It's kind of a habit now at this point. I've tried to stop through this podcast, trying to have it on my mind, but I keep doing it anyway. So I don't know. It's just going to come out of me that way. It is what it is. Let's move on. Hey, here's some crappy news. We all hate spammers, right? We all hate internet people who do bad things online, right? Well, apparently Malwarebytes, which is a security company, an internet security company, says that ransomware attacks have tripled in the first 3 months of 2019, which means they're probably just on the uprise, even more so now. And they're saying they are shifting their focus to small to medium-sized businesses, and of course that includes owner-operators. Now, they say really the reason why they're focusing on this is because, like, a lot of the big companies have, IT departments. They have, they have security specialists who their only job is to make sure that attackers don't get in, right? But the small guy, the owner-operator, doesn't. They don't usually, and they're usually not a security expert. So, they're more willing to click on something they're not supposed to, or something like that, and they will get in that way. Now, again, this ransomware, what they do is they hold all your data hostage, basically, and they just say, hey, we have all this data and we're willing to give it back to you, but you have to pay us so much money. Now, apparently, a couple of firms were hit last summer. Dewey Pile and Roadrunner Systems said they lost millions of dollars in repair costs and downtime. Now, granted, you might think, well, why are they trying to attack the owner-operator? Because they don't have that kind of money. Well, that's true. But the thought process behind this is that owner-operators are often tied into freight brokerage systems and other platforms like that, or even into their carrier. There is a way that you connect with your carrier online, and they're thinking that, these ransomware people are thinking if they can get into your system, they can work their way up into their system, like through a back door. So just beware this is happening. Usually the way these things happen is what's called a phishing attack, or a link in an email where they're trying to get you to click on something. They'll be like, it could be a concern, like, hey, your Social Security or your business account is about ready to be shut down, and then the thing will look like your bank or something like that, and you'll get all panicky thinking, oh no, my bank account's going to get shut down, and then you click on it, and then boom, they got you. So anyway, just be aware of this. I shouldn't have to tell anybody this nowadays, but if you're not savvy, well, even if you are savvy online, just don't click on stuff that you don't recognize. Now, I'm a bit of a hypocrite saying that, because I understand when you're running a business, sometimes you have to click on stuff that you're not sure about. I don't want to miss a business opportunity because somebody sends me something and they want me to look at their website or something like that. And, I go on it, I take that risk. A lot of times if it's just like a name of a company or something, I won't click on that link in an email, because that that could say it's going to a particular website, but it's going wherever they want it to go. What I will often do is just Google the place and, go in that way, find it my own way. So just be smart about these things. If someone is trying to trick you or put a scare tactic into you, legitimate firms don't do that. So just know not to click on that kind of crap, and don't be the way that, don't be the access point that will bring down your entire company. 'Cause man, these ransomware things are bad, bad, bad news. It's basically extortion, and there's nothing you can really do about it. And, on top of that, a lot of these companies think, well, I'll just pay it so I can get everything back. And supposedly these ransomware companies will give you everything back, but they are very naive to think that they took all of this information and they're giving it back without actually making a copy of it themselves. So they still have all of that information. They're just giving it back to you so you don't have to spend a fortune to rebuild your website and, all your back-end systems, stuff like that. So anyway, very interesting stuff. Just the moral of the story is that internet mean people suck. So let's just hate all of them. How about we do that? Oh boy, more bad news. Imagine that. Well, we got a couple more here to finish up. We're going to go to overdriveonline.com, and there is one of these awesome trucking laws articles, and this is how to properly log a yard move. And this doesn't, I was expecting this to actually show me how to do a yard move on my ELD, but that's not what it is, because, every system does it a little bit different. I'm sure my OmniTrax is different than a PeopleNet or, whatever, a Qualcomm. So if you don't know how to do a yard move yet, which honestly, there are guys at my company who still don't know how to do it, and they're just refusing because they're stubborn. But it's not that hard, and it works if you do it. So anyway, there are some basic questions on here, like what is a yard move? Are yard moves to be logged as driving time? Can I use the yard move option on the ELD when I'm driving at a customer's facility? And of course you can, but there are stipulations to that, such as it has to be like a enclosed place, like a distribution center that's inside a fence or marked off by signs or something like that. You cannot use it like, in a shopping mall, to move from one side of the mall to the other or something like that, because that is not, for business purposes, and it is not in an enclosed place. That is considered a public area. So you can only use yard move in a restricted or private area, which honestly, this article taught me because I did not know that. But there's some other good information in here. If you don't know what a yard move is, or you're not sure when you can use it, just check out the link in the show notes, and this will lead you to, I think it'll get you pretty much on track with it. And hey, if you don't know for sure, go ahead and send me an email at truckerdump@gmail.com. I'll be glad to help you out if I can. Or hey, even better, you can call someone who actually knows what they're talking about. This information comes from Paul O. Taylor. He is the managing partner of Truckers Justice Center, and he's been representing truck drivers for over 25 years. So if you want to call him or check out his website, it's truckersjusticecenter.com. And the phone number, you got a pen? Don't do this while you're driving. Go back or look at the link in the show notes. It'll be there. The phone number is 855-943-3518. And again, that is the Truckers Justice Center, and his name is Paul Taylor. He'll be happy to answer your questions, and he'll actually know what he's talking about, which I don't. All right. Lastly, how about we save your life, huh? Well, overdriveonline.com has an article called $50 and the little install work could save your life. Trucker Scott Carlson's close call. Basically, you will need to go to hear the whole story. You'll need to go to the Overdrive Radio podcast. Check that out. His story is in we'll put a link in the show notes to this article, and you can listen to it right there on the webpage. Basically, he installed some carbon monoxide detectors, which is kind of coincidental because Joshua in the upcoming interview mentions this also. And I had never really heard anything about this, but we've all heard, well, I could smell, exhaust fumes in my truck and stuff like that. Well, that could be downright deadly if it happens to you while you're sleeping and you don't realize it's happening. There can be horrible side effects from it and stuff like that. So this is basically this gentleman, Scott Carlson, is talking about how he installed these in all of his trucks, and it had saved his life at one point. So I guess it's fairly cheap, $50 apparently, and a little bit of elbow grease, and you can get in there and mount these things up and hardwire them to your truck so they always run. It's not just running while the truck's running. I guess so. Maybe if the truck next to you is leaking a lot of carbon monoxide and it's coming into your cab. We are in close quarters in these truck stops, so you never know. Anyway, if $50 can save your life, great. So again, go check that out. Link in the show notes, and listen to the Overdrive Radio podcast.
Give us a bottle of your finest champagne, 5 shrimp cocktails, and some bread for my brother.
What's that?
Sushi.
Sushi?
Boy, some chicken wings have really hit the spot.
This is a tasty burger.
Don't play with your food, eat it.
Well, what do you know? No one submitted anything for Trucker Grub, so I guess it's just going to be left up to little old me. Thankfully, I won't be bringing Fred in. No, I promise. Well, not this time anyway. So anyway, I'm sitting here thinking, what have I got for you? Where is it that the evil overlord and I used to love to go eat when we were out on the road? Well, one of the first places to come to mind was the Outpost Cafe in Hesperia, California. Now, unfortunately, if I want to go there now, I'm going to have to drive 1,481.2 miles. By the way, I got this from the Pilot Flying J app that we mentioned earlier. Found this truck stop that it's right near, which is the Pilot. Again, in Hesperia, it's at the intersection of I-15 and US 395. That's exit 141 on I-15. Lots of parking there, and the Outpost Cafe is right there beside the Pilot. I mean, it's like, 20 steps from the parking lot. So it's great to go there. Now, I looked at their website, and I honestly don't remember it being this expensive, but maybe it's because whenever we went in there, the evil overlord just always told me to shut up and don't worry about the money, because that's what usually happens when I start complaining about money. But anyway, I remember in particular, we'd go in there for breakfast sometimes, but in general, what we really went here for was, I was very fond of the spaghetti and meatballs, which it says it's served with super salad and garlic toast for $11.50. But we really love the honey stung fried chicken. Now that's 4 pieces of crispy southern fried chicken for $13.50. Again, I don't remember it being that expensive, but it probably was, and I was probably just told to keep my pie hole shut. Anyway, this is a neat little cafe. The people were always very friendly there. It's kind of an old Western style place, and I would highly recommend you go over to the website. It's outpostcafe.org, and you can check out their menu there. Actually, there's kind of a funny story about the way this place came about, which is probably not true, but it's funny regardless. The hours for this is 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. So it's got a wide variety of, times, so you can go in there for breakfast, lunch, dinner, late night, whatever you want to do. It's, again, I would highly recommend it, and I know the evil overlord would also. So that is going to be the Trucker Grub for this segment, is the Outpost Cafe in Hesperia, California. Check out the link in the show notes if you want to go directly to the website and check it out. And hey, I'm not issuing threats here, but I have honestly been thinking about this segment, trying to get, even considering if I'm going to do this segment anymore. I don't have very many people submitting to it. Maybe that's because the audio and people aren't comfortable with doing that. And I get that, but we just keep hearing from driver Chris Mack, which I'm very grateful. He always comes through for me when I need him to. It's him or me or just a couple of the other guys. I'd love to hear from you. If you have a favorite place that you just love to eat out there on the road, you saw how easy it was. Just say where it's at, what you like to eat there, about kind of what the prices are, and maybe something about the decor and what to expect and price wise, and, where you can park your truck, that kind of a thing. Just really quick, 2 to 3 minutes. Doesn't even have to be that long. So, again, if you have a submission for that, submit it to truckerdump@gmail.com, and I would forever be grateful. And again, not a threat, but if I don't start getting more of these and it's just going to be me and Chris doing them all the time, then I'll probably just drop the segment altogether. And, maybe that's fine, because things come in a podcast, they go in a podcast. Sometimes something takes, sometimes it doesn't. Y'all tend to really enjoy the news segment, and that's good. So that's staying. I was unsure of that in the beginning, but if you decided you hated it, and I heard a bunch of people say you hate the news segment, I would probably axe it. But anyway, like I said, submit it if you are interested to truckerdump@gmail.com. Sorry for the guilt trip. Hey, we're back to talk about Volvo dynamic steering. Check out volvotrucks.us to learn about all the cool Volvo trucks and this new Volvo dynamic steering feature. Volvo dynamic steering was designed with the driver in mind. It's just to try to make your job just a little bit easier by reducing strain on your back, your neck, your arms, and your shoulders, which is all associated with how you handle the steering wheel. Now, I know it sometimes doesn't seem like that takes a lot of effort, but if you ever really think about it, it surely does. I mean, this thing compensates for side winds, it removes road vibrations, and it makes backing simpler because it's got an automatic return to center. Now, today I'd like to focus on the side wind portion of this. What Volvo dynamic steering does is it has a little electronic sensor on the steering box that measures like what's going on like 2,000 times a second. And it really helps in side winds. Now, if you've ever driven for like all day long in a strong side wind or even gusty side winds, you know how much more fatigued you are at the end of the day. It doesn't seem like it's taking that much out of you, but by the end of that day, you're just like, where's the bunk? I need to fall into it, right? Well, Volvo dynamic steering, it takes a lot of that out. All but the worst gusts, it's going to read this ahead of time, and you're never even going to feel it in the wheel. It's going to make these little micro adjustments before it even gets to the driver. So it's basically like, there's no wind at all outside, except of course in the worst of winds, which no amount of electronic doohickey can fix. But hey, anything Volvo can do to make the driver have less fatigue, that's what they're trying to do, because a fatigued driver is not a good driver. So hey, I'm going to put a link in the show notes to the video on YouTube that focuses on the side winds. So go check that out, see how this thing works. It's really cool. Truly, it's like nothing you've ever seen or driven before. It's really cool. Volvo dynamic steering. Enjoy driving again. You can learn more at volvotrucks.us, or again, check out the link to the YouTube video for more information. And thanks to Volvo Trucks for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump. All right, let's get on with the main topic. I've been talking about this series I'd like to do where we focus on a particular kind of truck driver who does something special that the average guy or gal doesn't do. And, back in July, I believe it was, we had Shannon Holden on to talk about his job as a rental equipment delivery guy. And now we've got a guy named Joshua Knode on here to talk about expediting. And I guess, it's a fun interview. We've got some cool stories in here. And if you've ever been interested in expediting, or even if you haven't, stick around because you're probably going to learn something new. I learned a lot of new stuff. This is one of those areas that you see a lot of them, but you don't really know quite what's going on. And there were some things that I learned in this interview that really surprised me. Again, you're going to want to stick around. There's some really cool stories in here. So, hey, let's get on with it. Oh, yeah. One quick thing I wanted to mention is we had a little bit of audio problems in here. We had, I think Joshua had his microphone rubbing up against his shirt a few times, or the cord on it. It's not too bad, so I'm just going to leave it in the way it is. Certainly wasn't worth going back and doing everything over again. And again, like you've probably told me a million times, you don't care that much about the audio anyway. So you're listening in a truck going down the road, you're not going to hear it anyway. So again, just wanted to warn you that I know it's there. No need to bring it to my attention. Anyway, let's get on with it. Enjoy. All right. We've got Joshua Knode on the show today. Welcome to the show, Joshua.
Thanks for having me, my man.
Hey, Joshua is an expediter. Is that right? An expediter. That's what I've always called the guys in the little trucks that deliver stuff really, really fast. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, the name kind of says it all. When you're an expediter, you expedite. If something has to get there quicker and you need specialized service, that's what expediters do. Okay.
Well, okay, here's another quick question. I was looking this up online. When you spell expediter, do you spell it with an O-R or an E-R?
Expediter. I don't know. Actually, I'm horrible at spelling.
Yeah, it's both online. I couldn't tell the difference, so I don't really know what to put on the in the podcast title on this. So anyway,
I think I use E more often. It's more actionable,
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Well, how exactly is expediting different from, say, just shipping it through UPS or something like that? Aren't both of those designed to be get it there as quick as possible? How is it different? I've never quite understood that.
Well, the main difference between say just your average delivery truck for UPS or any kind of mail alternative, and then something like an expedite company would mainly be, I guess the primary thing is that my type of expediting, I work for mainly industry. So like I would work for big corporations, factories, sometimes smaller industry like laboratories and things like that. And the things that we move have to be there almost instantly, as fast as they can physically move. With UPS, there's a lot of, or UPS or DHL or FedEx or any of those, there's a lot of processing that goes into it. And that's fine because they do a lot of individual deliveries. But an expediter is someone you call if you need something to go from point A to point B with nothing in between.
Okay. So yeah, you don't want your pallet to go to a warehouse somewhere and then it gets transferred and moved over to another place, another truck, and then that guy delivers it and then it gets back on a city truck and then it goes again. This is just point A to point B, and that's what makes it so fast.
Exactly. And we have nothing expedites in the back. UPS will make dozens of deliveries and they do it pretty fast. They can have next day service and stuff like that. But expedite companies kind of pride themselves at being able to get almost anywhere in the continental United States, or expanding that to North America with some companies, within about 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's on the extreme level. Like if you need it, like I've taken things from Kentucky to Los Angeles, California, and that would be about a 2-day drive. And, also in the smaller vehicles, like the van expediting, you don't have any logbooks, so you can go straight through as long as you're safe to drive.
Okay. That was another question I had. You mentioned the van. Now, is that what you drive? You drive it like a cargo van, or do you one of those Sprinters or a box truck, or what are you driving?
Personally, I drive a Ford E350, and it's just a normal expedite van or a normal Econoline van that has just nothing in the back except for a bed. And, you can haul about 2 pallets in it, which is about the most you'll need. But the majority of expediters out there that expedite in vans nowadays will have a high-top Sprinter, a Nissan NV. Those are getting popular. The big diesel vans.
Mm-hmm.
They can do just about everything a car can do, as far as, where you can get them, and, you don't have to worry about low clearances, though you can't get a Sprinter through a McDonald's drive-through, unfortunately.
Well, that's very important when you're a truck driver.
Yeah, that's why I have the Econoline, because I can go through Taco Bell without having to, get out,
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned a couple of pallets back there. How is there like a weight restriction on that kind of a vehicle?
The Econolines, the kind I have, which is just like the big Chevys or the, just your standard, Super Duty vans, they can get about 2,200 in there safely.
Okay.
I've known people that have pushed it up to almost 1,000, but once you get up to that, your bumpers start to drag. It gets a little dangerous.
Yeah.
Now the larger Sprinters can get about 3,000 in there, and these are mainly in Europe, but some crazy people in America might have these. There's also Sprinters that are big enough to have air brakes, and they can get about 5 tons in there.
Wow. Okay. So, well, you naturally don't want to have the back of your van squatting, because that's probably going to bring on the attention of DOT. But that begs the question. You mentioned that as a cargo van driver like you do, you don't have to run logs. Is that right?
Yeah, there's no log books. We're under the minimum weight for that.
Oh, okay. So that speeds things up too. So are you basically telling me that it's kind of like back in the old day where you just actually knew your body and you knew when to pull over and sleep and you could drive as long as you want? Or is there some kind of limits to it?
Well, most companies set a limit. The company that I work for, they limit me to 16 hours, and then they ask that you get a 5-hour nap. But some companies don't care as long as you're feeling all right. And you also have to be careful, because in a truck they can nail you for a log violation, obviously, but in a van, if a cop pulls you over for fatigue driving, in some states that can be a pretty serious offense. So you do want to know your body. It takes a lot more responsibility, to not just drive 25 hours and again, the companies, they'll try to schedule it so you can at least get a nap in there just to keep things safe.
Yeah. Boy, it's sad that our industry has come to the point where we have to have e-logs to control the rebels, but I wish, unfortunately, I know a lot of guys say, well, drivers are responsible enough to know their bodies and know when we're tired, when we're not, when we can drive and when we're not. Well, clearly, I would say clearly not most of the time. It takes a special kind of person that can control themselves and know the limits to their body, because look at, back in the 70s and stuff they're running, they're taking all the little white pills to stay awake, and, just pushing things. And that's what brought us to this point where we're now on ELDs. So kind of brought it on ourselves in a way. If everybody was a responsible driver, that could do the job and do it safely, without government intervention, then, that just ain't going to happen. We're past that point now. So that now that you said that, though, that makes a lot more sense as to why this is truly expedited stuff, because I probably, like most truckers out here, had assumed that you guys still had to go by the rules. You still had to follow all these rules. So you don't have to mess with that stupid 30-minute break. You don't have a 14-hour limit. And no. If you go over, say, your 15 or 16 hours or whatever you said your company said, and that they're just going to smack you on the hand and say, hey, make sure you get some rest. That's really neat. I wish it was like that, but anymore, but it just ain't, and it can't be. There ain't no way people would abuse it.
I think there could be some reforms with, how they do logbooks. I mean, I think it could be made simpler, but governments are never good at making anything simple.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah.
Like I have analexia, which is a condition that makes it very hard for me to read long numbers and do math on paper. I can do it in my head just fine, or if I'm using a computer, I can do it just fine. But if I'm something like a logbook is torturous for somebody with analexia or dyslexia, because it's very difficult to do. And I think if they simplified it a little bit, not just for dyslexic people, but I mean for all drivers, instead of having this weird 5 days on, 5 days off split log thing where it requires practically knowing calculus how to do it, there would be a lot more adherence. But you're right in that, there's a lot of upside down trucks that I've seen in the media and that reveal to me, yeah, somebody was driving a lot further than they should have. And the problem too is companies who, kind of force their drivers, like, either take this load or you don't have a job. They kind of are part of the problem too. And they need to be, that needs to be reformed. But if I had all the answers, I'd probably be running for some kind of office, not driving a van.
Yeah. Okay, now that we've decided that you and I can both fix the entire trucking industry if we just put our minds to it, if people would elect us into office, let's move on and let's discuss. You mentioned like you will work for a particular type of an industry. Is that the way most expediters work, or would they just haul a variety of stuff, or what kinds of freight are they hauling? Like I remember. I think I know from somebody telling me a long time ago that there's a lot of expediters within the auto industry.
The biggest customers is the auto industry, because companies like, Nissan, Toyota, all the major companies have their own logistics division. They have their own trucks. And the problem is they never seem to get their cubage quite right. They never figure out how much, and that's good for us because when there's a pallet or two left over, they just call the expediters. And if you go down to Smyrna in the morning, down by the Nissan plant, you will see hundreds of, about 5 a.m, you'll see hundreds of vans waiting to get into the logistics center. And the reason for that is those are the guys that are hauling the pallets that didn't fit on whatever truck they had,
Oh. Yeah. So like you said, it's good that they're bad at math too.
Yeah. It's part of our, and it's not always being bad at math. I mean, sometimes, trailers will have like a lock loader bar and they don't know what to do with it. And it's just like, oh, never mind. We'll just call a van. And they have like standing contracts with us. So it's not like they're losing money. It's like, it's almost like a Netflix subscription. Like if you have a Netflix subscription, you can log on anytime, watch as many movies as you want. If you have a standing contract with an expedite company, anytime you can't, I can't get this pallet to fit, let's just call a van. Why not? You already have them under contract. So that's where we get most of our work. But I've also hauled a lot of more unusual stuff. Like I said, like laboratories have us work for them. I've hauled a lot of barrels of stuff that I don't know what it is. I've worked for companies with military contracts, where you haul, crates and, they say like, don't stop for anybody or,
Yeah. Yeah. And don't look in it or we'll have to kill you. That kind of a thing.
Yeah. And they always put parts on the BOL. It's always
parts. Yeah. That's very descriptive. Yeah. That's what you tell a DOT officer. Hey, what's in there? Parts.
Well, I went to, I picked up something one time and it was at a airport and it was being held up in customs for about 3 or 4 days. So I was at an airport near Washington, D.C. and it kept getting held back another day. And I'd go to the Walmart park and take a nap, come back. And I don't know what was being held up in customs and why. So finally they gave it to me and it was a little box wooden crate and the delivery address was somebody's house, which is unusual. At expedite companies, you normally only deliver to somebody's house if they have a business in their house.
Right.
Or sometimes they're the guy that's supposed to take it into
work with them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If it's a small box.
Right.
And this was a pretty big house and it was in that, what's that town in Virginia where all the people live that don't want to live in Washington, D.C., but they work in Washington, D.C.?
Is that Georgetown?
I think it's Georgetown. Yeah, a lot of the CIA people live there.
Okay, yeah. Quantico.
But, yeah, it's around that area. Very, very nice houses and, just far enough away from Washington, D.C. that, you don't have to worry about politics very much. But and I pull in and it was an Israeli dude. And he runs a private military company. And what I was hauling was a mount for a machine gun that would go on top of a Humvee.
Oh, okay.
And he was telling me, he says, I'm not even going to put a gun on it. I'm putting a camera on it because we're not, what we're doing is we haul around in Iraq and places like that. They haul around war correspondents. And most people think mercenary. They think, guy with a handlebar mustache and a huge machine gun going around shooting people. It's like,
right. Yeah.
Most PMCs are basically do what I do, but they just do it in a war zone. They just pick up boxes and take them from point A to point B.
Oh, okay.
And this guy, he hauled around people from like CNN and stuff, and he was just putting a camera in it. He went in an armored thing that they could put a camera in, and he says, every single thing I order is held up in customs. He says, I could order a box of cat litter and customs would hold it for like 10 days.
Yeah.
It's just because of his line of work. They want to make sure everything's legit.
Yeah. Well, and that's even funnier because, it's not like it's, a Muslim terrorist or something like that we've had problems with, but Israel is typically a friend of the United States and he's still getting scrutinized like that. Imagine if that was, somebody from, a terrorist type of a, racial background, they probably wouldn't order stuff like that through traditional channels, I guess, would they?
if they were nefarious, yeah.
Yeah.
He was Palestinian. He was a Muslim. He was just from Israel.
Oh, okay.
Unusual thing. Yeah, there's a Muslim population in Israel. People forget about that. But yeah, he was a decent dude. He's just, works as a PMC over there because he kind of, as he puts it, he says, I blend in,
Yeah. But, he would at that. So is that the strangest thing you've ever hauled, or what's the coolest thing you've ever hauled, or maybe the coolest place you've ever hauled to?
There's a place where Honda tests out their new robots that I get to deliver to every now and then. And they don't let you film in there. They don't even let you take your phone in because, this is where they're I'm good to talk about this. I asked them about it. They don't give me anything top secret. They just don't want me filming back there.
Right.
And I remember I was taking in a bunch of what they call drive shafts, which I didn't know robots had drive shafts.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was just a huge box of them. And he says, well, we're working on a robot that operates off one motor. Like instead of a bunch of motors and all the joints, we want one motor and it's going to be a shaft. And he goes, the problem is we keep breaking shafts testing this out. So we just ordered a bunch of them. And I go, really? How's that work? And he just looks at me like, I cannot tell you that. I absolutely cannot tell you how this works. He probably even, but I found out later that was one of the Asimos, the robots that they kind of use to help out handicapped people and stuff in different countries.
Oh.
And, there's one of them will work off a single motor. So I guess that's why I think I could talk about it because it's already out there.
Right.
But,
and nobody listens to this podcast, so they won't know anyway.
it's not like they're, Honda's enemies are out there taking notes.
No, especially not on the trucker dump. You're not on, This American Life or anything talking about it.
Yeah. Let's see. I've also hauled a lot of windmill parts out to Colorado. That's a big one. Colorado has a lot of wind farms now. There was a whole government thing where they were basically just dumping money into wind, and a lot of companies came up, and we got a lot of work out of that. And it was mostly just these very highly sensitive gearboxes that we had to take in. Small, but they were like very expensive items because they had to be hand machined. And every one of those deliveries was way out in the middle of the mountains or, just nowhere.
How do you find directions to a place like that? They just give you GPS coordinates, or how's that work? Do they just tell you to turn on the dirt road by the cow? How's that work?
Once or twice they'd had to give me latitude, longitude. Mm-hmm. For deliveries like that, because you have to deliver it to what's called a workhouse. The wind farms have just like a little shed way out in the middle, and these things cover dozens of square miles. So it was, you had to go out to a dirt road, and it's easy to find because, on the plains out there, you see one building with a light on it. That's where you're going.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
just kind of follow the road. But yeah, it was difficult getting there a few times where it was up in the mountains where you're on these roads that looks like you need a donkey to get up them,
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned a long time ago, I wonder if you could share the story. Maybe it's not even an exciting story, but since I love the band, you delivered something to a band one time. Is that correct?
That was Metallica. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta love some Metallica, man.
That was, I'm glad you brought that up. I almost forgot about that. I had so many wacky loads. At one point, somebody who worked for Metallica left a box, a big wooden crate with stickers all over it. It looks like something that a band would take on tour,
Of course, yeah.
And it had hundreds and hundreds of feet of cords for guitars, microphones, speakers, almost everything on stage.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine this man was probably fired. But they hired an expediter to pick this up at a warehouse, which I don't know how it got to the warehouse. I guess somebody must have took it out there from the venue or something, but they might have thought it was going on a truck and they needed a dock. I basically dropped it off at it was basically a rest area, and I put it in a roadie's car. And I was hoping that I could get somebody from Metallica to sign for it, but this was literally their show. If they didn't get these cords, they were not going on. So I put on my Facebook that day, I don't get to say this very often, but Metallica is counting on me.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah. I don't think most people probably know, but when you go to, like, the kind of cords they have are really long and really complicated with huge junction boxes and stuff like that on it. You can't just go to the local music store and buy one of those. You might be able to buy something similar, but it would be like 50 foot long or 100 foot long, not, 300 feet long or whatever. You just can't get that stuff. It's special made. So they leave a box behind like that and they are screwed. Yeah. Well, that's
happened. Another band, I don't remember the name of the band, but they left behind something that they used in their show. And they were one of those bands, they called them a masked band. And I can't remember the name of them. It's not the kind of music I listen to, but they, like Quar or Ghost or one of those bands that kind of wear masks. And
real theatrical. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They left behind a big piece of bulletproof glass that had burn marks on it. And it was huge. And I had to haul that from one place to another, and I had to pull into a rock club, and like 5 guys loaded me up. And they're like, "Hey, forgot the glass, man." And
what do they do with that?
I don't know. I'm not sure, but I mean, at some point in the show, they needed a big piece of bulletproof glass, I guess. I mean,
oh dear God.
I kind of wanted to see the show, but they weren't on.
Yeah.
I also delivered to another celebrity. This is one of the times I had to go into New York. Any trucker will shudder hearing about Manhattan, but
yeah,
it's slightly easier in a van, but not. And your GPS just goes nuts once you hit Manhattan because the signal's bouncing around between the skyscrapers like Spider-Man. And
yeah.
Luckily, it's all a grid, so you can kind of navigate, especially if the place you're picking up or delivering to is kind of remarkable. And it usually is. Like, if somebody hires an expediter, it's usually a storefront, and it's usually, some lady in a pantsuit out there talking on the cell phone the whole time, like, I don't know how you missed this. And they load up a box of, scarves or whatever, and you got to haul it to some show. But I was hauling an 800-pound box of custom cut marble stairs. And I was delivering to this, right down the street from NBC Studios. There's this apartment building, and the apartments in it are like well known for being the most expensive apartments in the world. Okay. And this is where I was delivering.
Mm-hmm.
And, I looked at the leaseholder information, and it was Jimmy Fallon.
Okay.
I was delivering his stairs. And I'm talking to my brother on the phone. He goes, "Well, how do you know it's the Jimmy Fallon?" I go, "Yeah, like a block from NBC in one of the most expensive apartments in Manhattan. I think it's him."
Yeah, it's the one. Yeah, for sure.
There's like 3 people that live in that building, and the other 2 are like, oil billionaires. And
right.
The thing is when I got there, that building has a loading dock because, people take their furniture and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not a Teamster, you don't unload in New York. You don't get help unloading, and you don't use their docks either.
Right.
I tried telling them that I was a member of Fiction Writers Equity, which is my writers' union, and they didn't really respect that.
They didn't buy that. No.
Yeah,
Teamsters are a bit strict. I should know. I'm one now. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They didn't really see that as helpful, but
yeah.
So, but to their credit, they did help out. They did call the doorman, who was 19 years old and about 90 pounds soaking wet, to bring out a luggage cart to load these 800-pound stairs.
Oh, no.
And they're marble. If I would have dropped these things in the street, that's it. That's the ball game. So him and I managed to get him on that brass luggage cart, and the tough part was getting it over the curb, too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're pushing this $2 billion cars, parked on the street in Manhattan, just, lifting it up over the... But he managed to do it and get it into the freight elevator, and so that was and he signed for it. I didn't get Jimmy Fallon to sign for it, unfortunately, but said
that would have been a lot easier if you hadn't had Screech from Saved by the Bell as your partner there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, modern Dustin Diamond, he probably could have handled it. He's pretty jacked now, but
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, where are they now?
Yeah.
Oh, those are cool. I love stories like that. That's great. It's great that you got lots of them. Okay. Well, let's get back to the job itself a little bit. So are you an owner operator? Are you leased? How's that work? Are most owner operators lease, or do they have company drivers within, the expediting industry?
Company drivers are pretty rare unless it's a small company.
Mm-hmm.
If you drive for a major carrier, if you take like a major expediter like Panther or DHL or one of those, or DHL Custom Critical or FedEx Custom Critical, the Hours, any of these, they hire 100% owner operators.
Okay.
They don't have anybody on staff who drives. Now the owner operators can own more than one van. Like, I drive for a fleet owner.
Okay.
He's a cool guy. Him and I do business, but he owns about 5 vans and about 6 trucks. And, he, leases them out to drivers like myself. He gets a percentage. I get a percentage. And, that works for me because he does all the repair and maintenance, including oil changes on the van.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to worry about that. It's one less thing to worry about when I'm on the road. And he gets a percentage of my pay for that. So he does pretty well for himself. And, but a lot of people will just buy a van themselves, soup it up. Expedite vans are almost always, they soup them up a little bit.
For the extra weight. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, I joke that my fleet owner put I think he took the engine that's in mine out of a tugboat or like a cargo carrier.
Yeah, it'll pull a stump out of the ground, huh? That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some expedite vans are like hot rods. Like you could outrun Vin Diesel in one of these things.
Huh.
But at the same time, they also soup up the insides. Like I used to have a Sprinter that was basically had an apartment inside. I mean, I had a TV, a refrigerator, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I was going to ask about those sleeping arrangement. I mean, so the bigger vehicles will, like a Sprinter or something like that, or some box truck with an extended area on the back, like an extended cab area. You could make that into a little sleeper bunk, basically. But a cargo van, you don't have a lot of room back there. So what's the sleeping arrangement like there?
Well, an Ford Econoline van is big enough that you can have a bed, just a bed that's like my bed is right behind my driver's seat.
So it's more like the width of a cot rather than like a twin size bed, like in a huge sleeper.
Yeah.
Be my guess.
And it's not so bad once you get used to it. And I generally only use it during the week. On the weekends, I get a hotel room or I stay with friends if I know somebody in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I have I have a TV in there and, nowadays with like laptops, you can have all the entertainment you need, but so that's kind of taken care of. But as far as living arrangements, it's not bad. I mean, I always tell people who are getting into expediting, get a good mattress. That'll make all the difference.
Yeah. Help you sleep well. Yeah.
Yeah. They sell super cheap foam mattresses for expediters, and those don't do anybody any good. You got to get something nice so you can, you got to pamper yourself every chance you get, because it's kind of primitive living.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I've seen you guys like sitting in the, in the main parking lot at a Flying J or whatever, and somebody's got a diesel generator sitting outside, on the ground, and it's running. Is that the way? I mean, do you just run your truck all night, or do you have like some kind of a generator to provide air conditioning, or how's that work?
Personally, I'm from Ohio, and I got a polar bear badge, so I mean, I'm used to like winter camping, so I can do okay in the winter.
It's the summer. That's me. I can sleep in the cold, but in the summer, I do not sleep well in the heat. So how do you do that? If it's super hot, do you just get a hotel instead that night?
Yeah, a lot of expedite drivers do have a generator or a really good inverter, and then they hook up like a air conditioner to a battery bank, and just put it in one of the rear windows. You see that a lot. Other ones will just open up the rear doors and then pull down both windows and just have fans blowing through, so you have a constant airflow. I mean, I do that. In the winter, you can idle all night like if it's below about 10 degrees, that's what I do just for safety. And you want a good CO2 detector because you don't have snorkels like on a truck. If you have an exhaust leak, it can come right up through the floor if you're not careful.
Right. Yeah.
And also drop about $60-$70 on a sub-zero sleeping bag. Same kind they use in Antarctica. I mean, they'll keep you nice and toasty warm all night. Mm-hmm. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like, like if you're just getting into trucking, this may not be the way to get in, because it's like it's almost too difficult. You look at it and go, well, all trucking is like this. Well, no, it's really not. A lot of these modern cabs, are, decked out and have big TVs and inverters, and, it's basically like living in a small studio apartment or something like that, but if they come in and they're sleeping on a tiny little bunk and freezing their butts off and, hauling out a generator every other day or something like that, then that would really turn them off. So it doesn't sound like a very good job to get started in. Is this how you started in trucking, or how'd you get started in trucking?
I used to have a contract with a trucking company, and I drove auto parts, again, good work if you can find it, between Toledo and Detroit.
As an expediter?
No, that was just a regular route. I did it as a team first, and I did it alone for a little while.
In big trucks or in small ones?
In big trucks.
Okay. So you have a Class A CDL.
Yeah. Okay. Most expediters start out that way. The ones that are successful start out as truckers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you don't need a Class A CDL to be an expediter, do you? Because of the type of equipment.
No. Some companies prefer you have a CDL.
Right.
It kind of shows that you're a better driver, but
yeah, a level of professionalism. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what could you get by with? What is the minimum for like what you're doing? Is it a Class B, a Class C? What is it?
You can get by on a chauffeur's license, a Class C. A lot of companies will accept that because there's a lot of additional testing you have to do, and that kind of shows. But then again, a lot of expedite companies, they're not hiring from the trucker pool anymore. They're hiring directly. And sometimes that works out and sometimes it doesn't. Like somebody who's never been in a truck before, who's never been outside of their hometown, sometimes that can work, but other times people just don't know how to handle it and they kind of lose their minds out there. Same thing happens with trucking, but with expediting, it's a little worse because I've gotten called before on recovery jobs, which is always somebody flipped out and just left their van somewhere. And usually they destroy it. Mm-hmm. I mean, they'll break the windows. They'll throw the keys up a tailpipe.
Nice.
they just get really mad because they feel as if nobody warned them how bad it's going to be. And again, that's the extreme cases. Other people they get home and they're like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. This is,
Well, I think it would behoove them to get a real trucker. Let's put that in air quotes, but a real trucker who's been driving for years, and the kind of guy that is frustrated when they have to shut down in 11 hours and they're not tired. Because you bring in somebody from the outside industry. I mean, as well as I do, you talk to a family member and you tell them you're going to drive 200 miles to Wichita, and they go, "Oh my God, that's such a long drive." And we're just like, that's a drop in the hat. I could do that with my eyes closed,
That's half an audiobook. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't know what they're getting into. So it seems smarter. And besides, if you're running as an owner operator or a lease driver, man, I would not want to put a new person, somebody outside the trucking industry into that kind of a situation either, because they're just going to be lost. They're not going to know what they're doing.
And some people can handle it. I mean, some people can. But it's kind of rare that you just drop somebody in that without any experience and they just do fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with trucking, at least there's a bit more of a support culture. With expediting, it's like there's nobody out here really to ask questions, for you to ask. And basically, I used to work in an office before I got into trucking. And if I didn't know how to fill out a certain report or something, I could just walk over to the supervisor. "Oh, how do I do that?" "Okay, sure. Yeah, here's how you do it." And all the time, I knew exactly where I had to be and exactly what I was doing. In the expediting, and the trucking's the same way pretty much. Like, they'll walk you through that. They put you with a driver. They get you experience. With expediting, they give you a van. They give you a whole bunch of paperwork and maybe some equipment and like a one-day orientation a lot of the time.
Great. Yeah.
And they say, get this 3 tons of washers from here to 500 miles away. And essentially, however you do it, as long as you're on time, we don't care. That's it.
Wow. Yeah.
And people go from, having structure, a supervisor right there telling them to stock shelves or whatever their job is, to having no supervisor, no boss, and they just give you a job to do however you want to do it. And given all these options of how to possibly do it, people just lose their minds.
Yeah. Lack of supervision and lack of mentorship. We were talking about that on the last podcast with, Ellen Voya from the Women in Trucking, how important mentorships are. And, I was saying in that podcast how important it was, when I switched over to this LTL company and got, had all the new union rules and switching from over the road to LTL, there were so many different things. And without the mentors that I had that were always there to answer my phone call, it would have been really hard. And I honestly would have lost a lot of money, so, and, even like the average trucker, if they come into the industry, they don't know anybody. Well, they could join a Facebook group of truckers. They could join a Slack group of truckers like I have. And, you can ask questions and get your questions answered. There might be a lot of smart aleck answers in there, but you can probably get someone to give you a legitimate answer on the question you have or the situation you're in, whereas, like you say, expediting is a different thing. You don't have that support network behind you. And that's got to be rough for the newbie, especially.
Yeah, I mean, the job that we have is it's not that it's poorly defined. It's just considered like an expansion of the trucking industry. But there's a lot of things that I can't ask a guy who drives a Freightliner, how to do in my job.
Well, yeah, I've got 22 years of experience, but you can't ask me anything because I don't know,
Yeah.
I'm not going to know what you're doing,
And there are expedite groups, but there's so much, there's a lot of turnover in this kind of job. So old timers are kind of hard to come by.
Mm-hmm. So everybody's learning at the same time. It sounds like kind of.
Yeah. And most of those groups are just either complaining about dispatchers or complaining about cops or, generally turn on the CB near a way station. And the kind of talk that you hear there is every expediter group because it's,
great.
It's somebody who's like 17 years they drove trucks, but like now they're in a van and they don't know what to do. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do? I only got one pallet. It's like, yeah, that's a load.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah. You're going to give another pallet. Where are you going to put it, dude?
And the key thing that most people don't get, now I'll be honest, I make more money doing this job than I did driving truck. And
okay,
the reason for that is you've got to, one, push yourself. You got to be willing to work 60 hours a week sometimes. Two, I guess there's three things. Okay. Because two, you got to negotiate. And remember that your contract has all kinds of things like they pay you for a hand load and a hand unload. That's $25 an hour. But if you don't ask for it and you don't put it on your bill when you send it in, they don't pay you for it.
Right.
Also, detention and layover, things like that. You've got to mark them down. You've got to notify them. I am now on detention, which is like $80 an hour in Expedite. You want that.
Yeah.
And that's mainly where you make those money, is those fees and stuff, because your carrier will gladly pay them. It's just they'll also gladly not pay them if you don't bill them.
Right.
I mean, if you get a bill from your mechanic and they forgot to put labor and parts on there, well, are you going to well, that's everything, isn't it? If they forgot to put labor on there, are you going to take the bill back up and go, oh, wait, I should be paying you an extra $100? Of course not. Most people won't do that.
Right.
Maybe I would because I'm a wimp, but but yeah, basically you got to do that. You got to know where the freight is. Like most people that they'll hear, a load to Miami, Florida. I'll go get myself some seafood and, and it's nice down there. They don't realize that Miami almost never gets any kind of freight.
Yeah.
Truckers
sucks.
might know.
Yeah. Truckers know it for sure. Yeah.
Also, outside of Disney World and the beach, the entire state of Florida is kind of it's kind of a mess. It's nothing but mosquitoes, swamps, alligators.
I hate it.
It's good food though. Amazing seafood. I will say that. But, other people, it's like, I turned down an 800-mile load, or no, it was a 1,200-mile load out to Utah, and people thought I was nuts. When I say that on Facebook, it's like, well, yeah, but I get out to Utah, what then? My company only expedites on the East Coast. So I'm not going to find anything. I would have to drive all the way to El Paso, which is another 800 miles for free to get another job. So
yeah.
Unless I want to visit like a Mormon temple or something, there's no point in going out there. Yeah.
So this sounds like a typical lease or owner operator type situation in a big truck where you are not, if you're a lease guy, like you're working for another guy, he's the one that's negotiating all these deals. He's the one that's getting the, like he's got a set amount that he's paying you for detention or whatever. Like a lot of these big trucking companies who lease guys, same type of thing. They're finding loads for you and things like that. Is that correct?
He sort of acts as my advocate, but generally a fleet owner will look for a driver that can do that kind of thing themselves.
As a lease guy, you are finding your own loads, or are you?
No, my carrier finds the loads.
Okay.
Yeah, they have contracts and stuff that with different people, and we can find our own loads, but it's pretty difficult for us to do that. Plus, they do a better job than we ever could. I mean, going on Freightline and stuff like that.
Okay, so it's not even the owner operator you work for. He's not finding loads. The carrier is finding the loads.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my fleet owner is mainly he'll act as my advocate. Like if the carrier like leaves me sitting somewhere for too long or keeps losing my paperwork, he'll call and kind of lay the smack down. But generally he handles maintenance, and if something happens to the van, he gets me a new van, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You don't have to pay for the big things, which is one of the reasons why so many people don't want to be an owner operator, because they don't want that responsibility,
Oh yeah. And it's not as much with a truck. It's not nearly as much, but a lot of people who are owner operators and expedite think, well, how expensive can a Ford truck be? Well, there's $1,500 jobs you need to have sometimes. you need to have either a very good line of credit or you need to have a lot of cash put aside.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people go out on the road and, eat out and go to casinos and have fun, which is great. But if you eat into that emergency fund, then you're in trouble. That's one thing I like about going through a fleet owner is that once I get a paycheck, I know that that's my money to do with as I will and goes towards my bills and stuff, as opposed to having to put 2/3 of it behind. Uncle Sam's got to have his too, but
definitely.
You don't want to put aside, for maintenance, tires, oil changes, all that kind of stuff, which, I'd be making more technically if I was driving as an independent operator, but I guess I just do it for the reduced stress. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A lot less hassle. That's what I've always been told, everybody when I first got into the industry, especially when they found out, me and the evil overlord, that's my wife, when she was, we're teaming together, they were like, oh, you got to buy your own truck. You're going to make so much money. And we were like, we just don't really want the hassle of all that, and the risk involved with it. Like you said, why do that when you can put it off on somebody else? If the truck goes down, they give us a new truck. A different truck, and we just keep on moving and keep on making money. But, I guess it's good. There's something for everybody, owner operators, they want to control everything. And if that's what they want to do, great. They can pay for that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And, there's a lot of people that do very well as owner operators. It's just, you're talking about knowing yourself. I know myself. I know I'm not like horrible with money, but I'm not up to the point of running a business. That's
different.
That's advanced financial kung fu, and I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned pay. I'm not asking you to tell us how much you made, but, could you give us an idea of like how much more like, you would make than like if you were driving over the road right now with the same amount of experience and everything? Like if you just decided to go over the road with a in a tractor trailer, what's the money difference?
Well, I mean, an Expediter can make about, in a van, can do about 80 cents a mile.
Okay.
Plus deadhead, a good company will pay you for deadhead to a load. And, most companies have also a fuel surcharge. So compare that to what I guess a lot of tractor trailer companies are paying a bit more than 80 cents now. And there's a lot of, if you were to drive Expedite in a tractor trailer, which is possible, I mean, it's difficult because of the logging and stuff.
Right.
But they do have LTL Expedite, people. But only about like 1% of my carrier's fleet is tractor trailers. Most of it can be handled with, short trucks. But if you're in a short truck, you might make about $1.40 a mile and maybe $2 a mile in a semi.
Okay.
And so, it's pretty good as far as starting wages.
Do you still have the fuel and stuff coming out of that though, or is that just what you bring home? 80 cents per mile.
Well, they pay you a fuel surcharge on top of that. And it's, my van's gas and they still base it on diesel prices, which is a little bit of a mix up, but sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, but most of the vans are diesel. So I understand, but, that usually takes care of your fuel.
Do you guys stay as busy because it's more of a niche thing where, somebody needs something in an emergency type situation. That's more of a niche thing. So do you stay as busy? Do you have any more downtime than like the average over the road truck driver? I mean, you don't have to shut down for the mandatory 34-hour break and stuff like that, but, do you stay busy or are there long periods of time where you're like, 3 days waiting for a load that didn't show up or something like that?
Well, it really depends on the time of year. January is usually a bad time of year. February is okay. Summer is insane. You will work 14 hours straight or 14 days straight in summer, which is, but generally it's a lot different than trucking because trucking is pretty regular, I mean, unless something major happens, like, a factory blows up or something, you're not going to have like 2 days without a load. But in expediting, you will have like 4 or 5 days off, and then you'll work 10 days straight, and then you'll get 1 day off, and then you'll work another 6 days straight. So it's not regular. It comes in fits and starts, but generally you get enough mileage within a 2-week period to get a good paycheck if you're willing to work and if you stay near the good freight areas.
Yeah. It sounds like you almost need to be more flexible than an over-the-road driver when it comes to your home time.
Oh, yeah. I have no idea when I'm getting home most of the time.
Right.
Which is bad when I have a podcast and a girlfriend and a cat that likes me, but it's
Does the girlfriend like you or the cat? You were a little unclear about that.
Well, both of them like me right now, but if I'm out for another week, one will forget about me. I don't know which one, but
yeah, that's great.
It's just, you do have to be a little bit more flexible. I usually stay out about 3 or 4 weeks at a time. But there's times when you can take like an extra long vacation. But generally, I stay out about a little under a month, and then I stay home for about a week, and then go back out. But you can, I've stayed on the road for like 2 or 3 months at a time before, just just because everything's flowing, and I was avoiding my mother. No.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Well, sometimes sometimes you just have to, especially in this kind of an industry, it sounds like you just need to work when there's work, because it's going to slow down. I've experienced that with the LTL, industry, is that it slows down in the fall and the winter, and you need to run your butt off in the summer, when there's miles to be had, so you can put back a little for that slower time. So it sounds like kind of the same concept here. When there's work, and sometimes you might be out for a couple of months at a time. That's something to know, though, if you're considering this, that it's not just, you're straight. This is not your average over the road trucking job where, everything's supplied for you, and, you're going to be out for 10 days and home for 3, or whatever the situation is. It's not near as set as that, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a, like, I put, like, if I'm asked to write down my occupation on like any kind of form, I usually put like adventurer, because nobody knows what expediter is, and they always think it has something to do with drugs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what it's like. Like, it's like being a superhero. Like, we need these, 500 crates to go to, Texas. And it's like, all right, I'm on it, and you just get up and go. And that's the way it is.
So that flexibility, I guess it could be perceived, if you're an adventurer, like you say, it can be perceived as a pro because it keeps things interesting, but it could also, by the average person, maybe be considered like a con of that particular kind of trucking. Cause, a lot of drivers want something a bit more steady. And it sounds like to me, if you want something more steady and, you want to know exactly what day you're going to be home every week or whatever, this is not the job for you.
No, before I did this, I tried a number of different jobs that were very irregular, because as far as going into an office every day, I hated it. I absolutely hated going for 5 days and then having a weekend and then going back, and just, some people love that regularity. I just don't. And I tried things like, I tried to do bail bonds, and I got like, threw up on like for an entire day when we were with this guy, and didn't like that.
No,
it's not like Dog the Bounty Hunter. It's not like, leather and stuff. It's mostly just knocking on people's door and arguing.
Right.
Just like, I'm supposed to come in this day. I was supposed to come in next week. It's like, we have guns. We're here. Just come with us, please.
Yeah.
I did that for about a week, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
And then I tried being a private investigator. I got that license, and, it's like, you think that's cool, you think you get to wear a fedora and hang out, meet cool dames and whatever. It's not. It's mostly just following people around and seeing if they're cheating on their wives. And plus, there's remarkably little work for a private investigator in Ohio. That's where I'm from, is Ohio. It's like Cleveland and Columbus and Cincinnati, maybe. But like where I live out in the country, it's just like, unless somebody loses a cow, they don't really need a detective. So that was
right. Yeah. If they want to know if their wife's cheating on them, they just follow them themselves.
yeah. I mean, there's 3 other people in town. I mean, it's got to be one of them, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's not a very, none of those are very, I mean, I guess some people can do those, but again, I just, like one, there was no work, and the other one, I didn't like the work. So trucking is what I went into. Didn't like trucking because, driving a truck kind of made me nervous. I can still do it. Everybody asks me, they say, can you still drive a semi? I go, yes, I can double clutch. I can do the whole thing. But I just choose not to. And that's why expediting works for me. But I'm weird. I tell everybody, and every expediter I know who's very successful is also a weirdo.
It's just weird. Okay. So if you're a weirdo, maybe this is the industry for you.
Oh yeah. One guy I know, Jeff, is like this psychotic dude out of New Jersey, and he just randomly yells things out his window like, I'm fat and crazy and stuff like that. And, another guy I know is the lead guitarist in a heavy metal band called Steel Aggressor, and they're very good, but it's like, that's the kind of people that this job attracts, is just unusual people, and they're the ones that wind up being good at it.
Yeah. Huh. Weird. Well, I was going to ask you, I mean, you didn't like office work, and I can understand that. I could understand, the bail bondsman getting puked on. That's not fun.
No.
But what exactly prompted you to leave over the road trucking and driving big rigs for the small? What drew you to expediting other than you're weird?
Yeah, that helped. But it was kind of the freedom of it, because the job I got was a contract I just got right out of truck driving school. And it was one of those situations where I had a very bad experience with my first company. It was one of those where every single thing they said in their contract, every last thing, was a complete and total lie. The amount of money I'd be making, the fact that I'd be over the road, nope, it was a regular run. The fact that I'd be a solo driver, they teamed me up with some guy I didn't even know, and it's like, oh, I'm going to be sharing a sleeper cab with this possibly dangerous person I have never seen before in my life. It smells like beef. And I'm sure he's a nice guy, but like, I don't know him. And
right.
I'm going to sleep in 10 inches from him, and you just dump this on me. And they're like, no, you signed a contract for team driver. So that was a bad experience. So I managed to wiggle my way out of that, and I drove for another company that was a little bit better, but it's just, I get very nervous when I drive the big rigs, and when everybody says, oh, you'll get used to it and it'll just be second nature. I never really got to that point. A few years in, I still wasn't at that point.
Huh. Okay.
I wasn't comfortable with like reaching over and, hitting the next track on the radio or whatever, switching CDs on my audiobook. I just could never get the hang of it. I hated parking the dang things.
That's always the big challenge, when you first come out, you say, hey, you ever thought about driving a truck? Oh, I can never back one of those things in. That's always like one of the first things. I couldn't handle one of those things. I certainly couldn't back one in. Yeah.
And I got good at it. I got okay at it. It's just nerve wracking because, you've probably noticed this being a professional driver, but people in truck lots seem to not be able to notice the 17-ton thing moving through the truck lot.
Mm-hmm.
And they just randomly toddle out in front of it and with their toddler in their arms. And it's like, oh, great. Now I have to completely jam up my kingpin because I got to hit the brakes all of a sudden. And,
right.
Or you're backing up. Like one of the ones that just really cheesed me off is I backed into a parking spot. And it turns out there was another truck already in there. A bobtail was all the way in the back, nicely shadowed. And the guy came out laughing and like, I was watching you pull in and saying, oh, that guy's going to stop any minute. I'm like, yeah, you have a horn, like an air horn. And
and you hit him?
Yeah, I hit it. There wasn't any damage done.
Oh, yeah. You just tapped him.
It was just, yeah. And he, of course he's like, oh, we need a police report and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, yeah, okay. And we had to do all that.
Yeah. Or you could have just honked your horn, dude.
Yeah. It's like you have a city horn, just boop, boop, Or don't, pull the bobtail all the way in the back where you're concealed in shadow like friggin' Batman.
Right. I'm Batman.
Yeah. Bat trucker. Yeah. Admittingly, I could have, I probably could have done a little bit better job checking it out. But that's the thing is I'm thinking, when am I going to back into like an SUV full of nuns or something and ruin because the truck driving school I went to, and I won't name it, but it's a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically all the instructors were truckers that had their careers end due to unfortunate circumstances. And they thought the stories about it was hilarious. Like one guy, pulled his tandems over a lady's hood and, completely destroyed a car in downtown Chicago. And at the same time managed to hit a utility pole. And he's like, oh yeah, they lost power in like a whole block. It's like, that's not a funny story. That's a horrible story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these are the people that taught me. And these people they were good instructors, but they were all very jaded, very jaded. And they talk about like every car on the road wants to end your career. Look at that idiot pull out in front of you, and just, and I guess that training made me so nervous.
Yeah.
When I finally got behind the wheel of a truck, I was just afraid of everything. And,
well, I get it. Like you said, the risk is a lot more and you have to be careful, and they can really string you up if you screw up, where, because they're matching, you have an accident. The first thing they're going to do is pull probably your phone records first. And then make sure you're not playing, you're not on Facebook while you're going down the road, and, they're going to pull your logbook and they're going to match everything up. And if it doesn't match, well, you just took that logbook stuff out of the equation when you went to, expediting, because you don't have to worry about that stuff,
Oh yeah. What I learned in truck driving school translated very well to driving in general.
Mm-hmm.
And,
defensive driving and all that stuff. Yeah. That matters whether you're a truck driver or an automobile driver, but most automobile drivers are never taught that, or if they forget it,
And I don't want to say that I'm doing anything bad by saying this, because I always drive the speed limit. People are always like, they're always in truck stops. Like, it says, here's how I keep cops from pulling me over. Or like, you got a scheduled court on the cop's day off and they don't want to come in and all that. And it's like, I think, here's my secret to getting out of speeding tickets. There's these little white signs that have numbers on them. And if you stay below that, they can't pull you over. And, sometimes they do anyway, but it's like you have a tail light out or something. And, but, in all of the over 1 million miles I've done in a van, I've only been pulled over twice. And, once for a DOT inspection, but that was at a inspection station.
Mm-hmm.
And twice on the same Indian reservation in Oklahoma, because I had a tail light out. Same situation. They didn't ticket me. And, they had a guy at the beginning of the reservation at the end, like a cop,
Oh, yeah.
And basically one gave me a ticket. I said, well, I'm headed to the South Fox to that's a big truck stop down there, to get a new taillight. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah. And and I told him, I said, a guy already pulled me over. And he goes, oh, that was Hank. How's he doing? So
yeah,
that's the only 2 times I was pulled over. And white vans are basically urban camouflage. Cops just don't notice them.
Right.
It seems to me I should have been pulled over by a DOT or a police officer. No, they just don't see them. There's so many out there driven by plumbers and everything.
Yeah.
That they just don't pay attention to white vans. So if you're worried about cops harassing you, as long as you don't drive like a maniac,
buy a white van.
Yeah, buy a white van. I mean, it's a reason why the bad guys in every cop show has a white van,
Right. Yeah. Well, I totally agree with your speed limit stuff. There's an easy way to not get speeding tickets, and that's don't speed, I'll coast down a hill a little bit over the speed limit sometimes, but in general, I'm setting the cruise control at or below the speed limit a little bit. course, when I drive a 63 mile an hour truck, I don't have that option a lot of times, you know, if it's 65, I'm not speeding no matter what. So
they can go around you.
Yeah. Well, do you, since you mentioned speed, do these vans have speed limiters on them? Like the big trucks are often speed limited, or is it balls to the wall?
I've never seen one with a
speed limiter.
What do you call it?
Mm-hmm.
No, I've never
governor.
seen one with a governor.
Yeah.
And generally, like I said, these things are pretty souped up. Not like, Vin Diesel levels of souped up, but I mean, they're very powerful vehicles. So they expect you to go pretty fast. Again, they don't expect you to, I mean, every route traditionally in expediting is scheduled for 47 miles an hour average.
Okay.
You can beat that doing the speed limit.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I've never seen a governor on these. And there's not a lot of, like I said, a lot of truck driving companies I've worked for have been very Big Brother-ish, very, like, I don't know how many times I've stopped at a stoplight. Like, it goes from yellow to red pretty quickly, and you don't slam on your brakes. You don't like lock up, but you have to stop pretty abruptly. And then they call you up and say, well, you need to fill out a report for your braking event.
Right.
I'm like, why in the world do I need to fill out a report for hitting the brakes? That's like something you do. And so but they have to monitor it because, they don't want to get sued because some driver plowed into a school bus or something. But with expediting, they just pretty much, like I said, they say here to here in this amount of time, go. Do whatever you got to do,
Yeah. Well, that sounds like it's kind of it sounds like a big plus of, expediting is that if you just hate all these rules and hate Big Brother looking, over your shoulder all the time, it seems like this would be, granted this crazy schedule and all that stuff, but you are more your own boss than any over the road trucker. It sure seems like it, cause, just the hours of service itself, you can just do what you want to do. And if you are tired, you pull over and you sleep. There's a lot of truckers that don't need more than 5 or 6 hours of sleep, but you're stuck there for 10 hours at a truck stop, sitting in a truck stop lounge, watching football with a bunch of other truckers who are screaming at the TV. It's just, yeah, I can see why people are drawn to this, honestly. It just, like you say, it depends on the type of person you are. If you like that crazy schedule and you don't need to be home on a particular day each week for some, kids event or whatever, then it sounds like kind of an interesting, fun career. I'm not sure I would want to do it, but there's lots of people out there. I'm sure that it sounds, especially that E-log thing. Boy, there's people frustrated with this whole E-log thing right now. So,
and I hate to say it, but a lot of the people that are frustrated with it is because they can't cheat anymore. And it's like, just admit it, you had 3 log books in there. I mean, God, they're like, no, I log legitimately. It's like, what's the big deal?
I've said that numerous times. Yeah, same thing. They're pissed because they can't cheat anymore. I wrote a whole article about that, did a podcast on that basically there's no way to argue against E-logs because anything you argue against them is saying, well, I can't cheat like I used to. That's basically all you're saying. So, but the point is, it's like, you saying your company put some guidelines on you, but that's, I don't know how strict they are on that, but if a driver could drive 15, 16 hours a day, he'd probably be fine with that, and then they'd pull over and get a little bit of rest. Cause again, they're not having to do a whole 10 hours, they can just control their own bodies, which I think again is what a lot of truckers are just tired of being told when they're tired, and when they can run and when they can. Yeah. I totally get it.
The 16-hour thing is good for scheduling too. Like they can, like that load to LA I told you about is from Kentucky to LA, which is a big one, and you got to go across the Rocky Mountains and all this. Mm-hmm. So they throw in basically just an extra day so you can get all the sleep you need. But it's a good indicator when you're driving and you lose track of time that you see, it's been almost 16 hours. You schedule your next stop, it's actually kind of helpful that rule of thumb, because sometimes you don't feel fatigued, but you are, and
that's a really good point. Yeah. Sometimes you think you're far more alert than you actually are. That's an excellent point. Yeah.
Yeah. I've already got on the phone with my girlfriend and stuff, and she's like, you need to pull over. And I'm like, why? And she says, because you're not making any sense. I've been driving for 12 hours and I'm like,
yeah.
And you can't tell, but it messes with you.
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, I've had the evil overlord say the same thing to me. She's like, are you tired? And I'm like, well, I don't think I am. She said, well, you're slurring pretty bad. I'm like, am I? She's like, yep. Okay, I'll get a nap, I guess.
Yeah. And it's not hard in a van either. With a truck, and there's a lot of places to park trucks, but it's like some areas you're kind of done for, you're just not going to be able to find a place to park very easily. That's why you see so many people parked on exit ramps. But
you don't have that problem with Expeditors, do you? That's a plus for sure.
Oh yeah, you can park anywhere that, as long as the place is open 24 hours, is what I usually find, that people won't call the cops on you.
Mm-hmm.
But in some areas, if you park in a strip mall and everything is closed and it's 2 a.m, you'll get some nosy nanny out there, calling the cops. There's a white van out there and I don't know what they're doing, but you get that on the door to make sure you're not butchering chickens or something. And
but even like a Sprinter is small enough though that you could park that way out in a Walmart parking lot or something like that, and probably nobody would say a word to you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. As long as you're out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
I found out they're not very popular at drive-in movies.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They made me park in the back where all the RVs are. And the problem with that is all the people with RVs are not at the drive-in to watch the movie. They're there having barbecues and hanging out.
Right.
And they want to come up and talk to you. It's like, I'm just trying to watch Batman. And then they're like, they're back there. Oh, how you doing? How long you been driving? You want a beer? You want a steak? It's like, guys, there's a movie right there. Why aren't you paying attention? You paid to get in here. It's like,
right. Yeah, they're tailgating.
Yeah. But
right.
that's a good thing about being in Green Bay, is they have all those places where you can park. I go up to Green Bay every now and then, and they have what's called tailgate lots, where you can watch the game, and if the game's not going on, you can just park there. Nobody cares, and there's plenty of porta potties if you need to use the bathroom.
Oh, cool.
But I found out there was a game going on when I got woke up by a whole bunch of people once. But
oh man, yeah, that'd get loud quick.
Yeah, I had a good spot though.
Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the expediting industry in general before we head on out of here?
Just I advise anybody that wants to get into it, just understand you're going to be away from home for a while. And, if you got 12 kids and a dog, you might not want to, or you might want to. I don't know. Depending on your relationship with your wife and kids, maybe you do want to get out for 3
that
weeks.
Might be the very reason why you want this job. Yeah.
Yeah. When are you going to be at home, Marty? I don't know, babe.
Yeah. I don't know. When are you going to your mom's?
Yeah. When the kids go back to school, I'm gone. No, but no, I'd recommend it for anybody with kind of a sense of adventure and wants to see the country. It's like being paid to be a hobo. I kind of like it.
Right. Cool. All right. Okay, Joshua, I've found out by when we first met that you and I actually have something else in common. We're both podcasters. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Yes. Sure. Yeah. My podcast is, it's a little different than this one. I talk about, expediting and the trucking thing in general, but it's kind of a small part of it. I go by Joshua the Samurai on most of my online communications.
Okay.
And so the name of the podcast is, Samurai Says. I mean, basically it's just me answering really weird mail that I get from, Tumblr and weird news stories. And each week we talk about a different way the world could end. So that was fun.
Yeah. I did give your podcast a listen to, and it's different. I'll say that it's different. So if you're interested in that, Samurai Says, we'll put a link in the show notes to this, if you're interested in that podcast. You mentioned this is a bit of a racy podcast sometime. Lots of good language and stuff in it. Is that correct? Just so we can warn people.
This is a podcast for the adult listener. It gets a little Howard Stern-esque at points, except for funny and a lot less liberal.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. All right. So where can they find the podcast, and where can they find information on you? Where are you online?
I'm online. If they go to Tumblr, I'm at the Trucker Brony. I'm also into My Little Pony, which is weird, but I am. And
what?
Yeah,
wait. We can't go any further. Wait a second here. We can't go any further. How does a trucker end up into My Little Pony?
I watched the show and it was good. It's okay. I love cartoons. I enjoy cartoons, and I'm a toy collector from way back. I collect and buy and sell, and I'm a Hasbro nut. Oh. I go to BotCon. I go to different. I used to run my own convention for a little while, and everybody says, "Oh, you got to watch the new My Little Pony." I'm like, well, thank you very much. I watched the old one, and it was kind of lame. Mm-hmm. Not that I don't own some of them, but they resell. And intact Tucks and Tails will go for like $1,200 if you go sell it to the right person. But I
don't even know what that is.
It was a pony. It was one of the ponies. It was one of the ones you had to mail order.
Okay,
like
dude.
A transformer, but a horse. And but everybody says you got to watch the new show. It's great. It's hilarious. And I watched it, and it was good. I liked it. And some of my friends who I knew from, the animation world worked on it and everything, like Dennis Hu and Tara Strong. She's a sweetheart. And and my excuse was, I'm watching it to, but the community surrounding it is a fun community of, and it's not like, well, let's face it is weirdos like myself, but it's not. Okay. It's not as weird as you might think. It's the same kind of group that these are like functional adults who go to bars and stuff. It's not like 38 years old and living with their parents. It's some of them are. I mean, you get that in Star Trek and stuff too, but
yeah.
But no, I don't go into that too much on the show, but I've been on like a couple of Brony podcasts and stuff, and it's
wow. Yeah, interesting. So, okay. All right. So
I saw a Freightliner with not a Freightliner, a Kenworth W900 with Rainbow Dash painted on the side. So I'm not alone in it. But no, it's the truckerbrony.tumblr.com, and they can get me at Samurai Says Pod on Twitter. And just search Samurai Says on iTunes, Stitcher, or Podbean. Go to joshuathesamurai.podbean.com for that show. And again, it's kind of wacky. We get a lot of listeners from the Philippines. I have no idea why.
Huh? That's weird.
They love my show over there, I guess. And like somebody sent me a picture of a bunch of guys sitting in a bar in the Philippines, like listening to the new episode, and it's kind of a thing.
Bizarre. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I got popular over there, but I'll take the views,
Yeah, any way you can get it. I hear you.
I'll do an ad in tank play, but
strange. Boy, the end of this podcast took a weird twist.
Well, that's a preview for my podcast. It's nothing but weird. It's 2 hours of weird twists.
All right. How often does that come out?
Considering my schedule, it only comes out about once a month.
Yep.
But we do a long show.
Yeah, I'm the same way. This thing will probably be about a couple hours long. So same thing. I totally understand the lifestyle and the lack of time to do it. So, well, congratulations on doing it. So anyway, well, Joshua, thanks for coming on the show and explaining a little bit about expediting. I didn't know a lot about it. I saw them out there on the road, of course, but I had lots of questions, as you can tell. So anyway, thanks for coming on the show and explaining to us what's going on.
No problem at all.
All right. Well, that finishes that up. I'd like to thank Joshua again for coming on the show and explaining a little bit more about expediting to us. Man, I learned a lot in that episode. I hope you did too. If you did, or if you have more questions or anything like that, please send me an email at truckerdump@gmail.com and let me know what you think. And also let me know what you think about this series. And also, if you have a specialty, you do something special that you think is a special job in the trucking industry, please send me an email, truckerdump@gmail.com, and let me know what you do and if you would be willing to come on the show and talk about it. I guess just let me know and we'll decide if it's unique enough to put on the show. And again, technically, you don't need to do anything super difficult. All you really need to do is install a program called Skype on your phone or on your computer. And if you have a Bluetooth headset or just you can just use the phone itself, that would be plenty good. And basically, interviews sound a lot harder than they are. Basically, after you're only nervous in the very beginning. And then after that, it's just having a conversation with me. And we're just two dudes talking about trucking. So really, it's not that hard. And remember, if you go and you want to try to do this and you think it sucks, and when we're all said and done, everything's said and done and you think it sucks, you say, I don't want to air that. Well, I won't air it. So there's nothing to lose here. Just let me know if you have some unique job, or perhaps if you know somebody who does have one and you talk to them and they might be willing to come on the show. Anyway, like I said, I already have a heavy hauler lined up, so no need to worry about that. But any other kind of unique job I would be very interested in. And by unique job, I'm talking about, driving a trash truck, driving a concrete truck, driving a feed hauler or a bull hauler or something along those lines. Just anything other than the regular old van job or the regular old flatbed or tanker or that kind of thing. I'd even do tankers if it's something special, like some kind of weird special gas or, something highly hazardous or something like that, we'd like to learn some more extra things that maybe we didn't know that were precautions that we had to deal with, to do a job like this. Stuff like that. Anyway, rambled on way too long about that already. Anyway, the email address is truckerdump@gmail.com. Let's say we get on with some feedback.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
All right. After catching up on the feedback back in the the third feedback show, I was a little concerned about not having any, but you're pulling through. Thank you. I appreciate it. We've got 3 today. Let's start out with Eli. Looks like Eli was on the website. He read Trucker Dump 135, Trucking Recruiters, Friend or Foe? He writes, in my career as a truck driver, I can say that I've experienced good and bad recruiters. I've had recruiters tell me how it is, plain and simple, as if they weren't trying to recruit me at all costs. That one experience was definitely appreciated. However, most are pressured by quotas and commissions, so it's usually not a great experience for new drivers. The key takeaway here for most drivers that you mentioned is this: if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. Well, Eli, you got that right. Yeah, I know I said that in the podcast too, but it is true. Although I will have to make an alteration to that statement because, as I've said in a recent podcast, that I've recently switched to LTL driving, and for years, I'm telling you, I have heard drivers say that you can make really, really, really good money and be home more often. And what they were talking about was LTL. And I chose not to believe it. I chose that it was just, for some reason, I just overlooked it and thought, it's just more truckers blabbing about their great jobs and how much money they make when we know they really don't make that much money. Well, I can vouch now that I am making significantly more money now than I was over the road. And I considered myself, when I was over the road, to be one of the top paid. With 22 years of experience, I was at the top of my game. I worked for a company that had, some of the top pay out there. And I felt like I was doing really well until I came here. So I'm just saying, sometimes if it sounds too good to be true, it might be true. So the point I want to make here is just don't wait. If I didn't known what this job was like, I'm not trying to get you into LTL necessarily, although I think you'd be wise to check it out. But even if you're not, I'm just saying don't pass up an opportunity that sounds like it's too good to be true, because it might be true. Recently, I think I mentioned that I saw a job before I came here. I saw a job that was like 70 cents a mile or something like that. And I thought, that's too good to be true. But I'm going to call to make sure. Sure enough, it was one of those 1099 jobs, and it was too good to be true. But, I did finally check in on this LTL job, and I'm very, very, very happy here, especially with the money. Well, quite frankly, with everything about the job. It's the best job I've ever had, and pretty much everybody I work with says the same thing. So, again, not trying to recruit you to LTL, but go to LTL. All right. Thank you for your email, Eli. I appreciate it. Next up, we're going to hear from Richard the Lion, who comments on, guess what? Trucker Dump 95, 4 reasons that trucker might be tailgating you. Okay. Now, here we go. He says, I was a medic for approximately 8 years and now have worked in the transportation industry for just under 4. I wish we could line up all the families that have lost loved ones due to a tractor following too closely, so you would have to look them in the eyes and repeat the thought process you outlined above. You are lazy, impatient, and your ideas actually cause real people to die. Now, you know what? That is a well-written email. I don't mind people challenging me when they do it without telling me that they want to kill my spouse. This is well-written. It's well said. He called me lazy, and that's fine. That's his opinion, and I get it, and he does have a point. Now, I will have to say that I mentioned to him that I had planned on changing some things in the article, changing some wording a little bit, because it did come off a bit harsh, and also to add a disclaimer at the top saying that my intention in this article is not to say we are justified to tailgate as truckers, but we are this is just simply an article explaining why you might be getting tailgated by a trucker. That was the intent of the article. And I told him at the time that I hadn't done it yet, but I was planning on it. Well, I went and did it. So if you're interested in seeing how that came out, I just changed a few things here and there and added that big disclaimer in yellow at the top. And you can check that out at abouttruckdriving.com, and that article is TD95. Now, I haven't changed the audio for the podcast yet, but I plan on doing that also in the future, just to take some of the harsh language out of, like at one point I said, you deserve to have me riding up on your bumper, which, that's iffy. I mean, my point was they were doing something that was causing me to get that close to them, but there's really no excuse to be that close to them. So I'm taking your point, Richard, and everybody else who chewed me out, and I soften the language on that. I still think my points are valid, that 95% of the time, if you're getting tailgated by a truck, it's something you're doing, not something the truck is doing. Okay. I'm just going to leave that at that. Well, I say that, but the subject just doesn't seem to want to go away. I get one more from JJ Perky. And he writes, he wrote me on Messenger. This was a kind of odd. I don't normally have people writing me on Facebook Messenger, but it was nice to actually use Facebook for something for a change of pace. I'm suck at it over there. Anyway, he writes, Todd, I just finished listening to the newest episode of Trucker Dump podcast, and I must say, wow, just wow. Now, at this point, I thought, man, he loves this podcast. This is great. But he goes on. The tailgating episode caused quite a stir. Let me begin by saying that I listened to that show and do not agree with everything you said. Then again, I don't agree with everything anybody says. My wife, my parents, my sons, and my closest friends all have points of view that I do not subscribe to. This doesn't make them bad people. It means we disagree on certain subjects. I believe in civil discourse. I believe that hearing opposing points makes people better people. Many times I've changed my mind and changed other views by talking about what we disagree on. Now, with that being said, that disagreement is not a reason to wish harm or death upon another. I agree with you there, that's for sure. He says, I am embarrassed for those people who wrote some of the things they did. I believe they were embarrassed also, or they wouldn't have used fake names and trash email addresses. I agree there too. He says, I wish I could issue a challenge to them to identify themselves and have a debate. Not a debate of emotion or opinion, but facts. However, I do know that if this message was out public, they would not reply. If they were not adult enough to write you with real names and email addresses, they are not adult enough to respond publicly. This shouldn't shock me like it does. This is nothing new. The internet is a coward's paradise. Amen, brother. Anyway, keep doing what you do. Don't let a few bring you down or change the way you conduct yourself. Thanks for the podcast. I do enjoy it. Thanks, JJ. P.S. He says, I just thought of a person I agree with 100% of the time. Me. Yes, me. Nobody's a bigger fan of me than me, no matter how harebrained my wife says my ideas are. Boy, I can agree with you there, JJ. Yeah, I get the whole harebrained idea thing all the time. My wife's like, you are not near as smart as you think you are. She's always saying, nobody likes a know-it-all. Okay, fine. Anyway, this is a well-written email, and I really appreciate it, JJ. And, I think it's more timely than just talking about tailgating. He talked about how we have open dialogue between each other. We can learn from each other. We can, talk and have a civil conversation, as he called it, civil discourse, and I think that's very appropriate for this time of the year when we are going into, we all know Trump's going to be running for, 2020 for the presidency. And, it looks like the, Democrats are coming down to their final thing. And, Bernie's kind of out in front right now, and Warren's hot on his tail, and Biden's right there. And, Democratic voters typically hate Trump, and Republicans typically hate any of those three. There's no good options for Republicans, and there's no good options for Democrats. So this is coming up on a time where it's going to get nasty. We all know these presidential things get nasty, but let's just try to keep an open mind and remember that the people on the other end that don't agree with us are still humans, right? Let's treat them with respect. Let's sometimes just try to be the bigger person. And if they resort to name calling and attacks, just be the bigger person. I was attacked on this tailgating thing. They didn't agree with me on lots of aspects, and a lot of them resorted to calling names and things like that. And it's just best not to stoop to their level. It shows you're a better person. And let's just keep that in mind for this upcoming election, because, like I said, it's going to get nasty. It is. Everybody hates everybody, but, I'm not going to get into it. All the issues, between Trump and socialism and just everything going on right now. Boy, I'm going to stay far, far, far away from that subject when I'm on this podcast in general. Yeah, I think most of you know who I stand for and who I don't, but this is not the place for it. As a matter of fact, no place online that I talk. Maybe Twitter, I do a little bit of political stuff, but on my Slack groups and the Trucker Dump Slack group, the iTruckers Slack group, and the Facebook Trucker Dump Facebook group, we don't. No politics is allowed. No, nothing like that. So if you're interested in a quiet place to come and enjoy people who are like-minded, who just enjoy talking about other stuff rather than politics and religion all the time, then, join one of those groups. You can learn all this stuff at abouttruckdriving.com. All the links to the subscribe and all of that kind of stuff is on the subscribe page. Just go to abouttruckdriving.com and click on the subscribe tab. All that stuff's there. Actually, I may have misspoken. I think it's on the contact page. I should know that, shouldn't I? Oh, where is it? It is on the contact page. I stand corrected. Oh boy. You'd think I'd know that, wouldn't you? All right. Anyway, thank you to Eli, Richard, and JJ for writing in. I always appreciate getting email and hearing from any of you. If you got something to say, send me an email at truckerdump@gmail.com. And remember, you can always do audio comments. Love those. Haven't had one in a really long time. All right, well, let's go ahead and get on out of here. Try not to freeze to death before we talk again. And again, big thanks to Pilot Flying J and Volvo Trucks for sponsoring this episode. You guys rock. So, do you have any thoughts on today's podcast, comments, or questions on a news story, Expedited Trucking, or anything else? Shoot me an email at truckerdump@gmail.com, and you can find all my other contact info, including the Slack and Facebook groups, at abouttruckdriving.com/contact. If you'd like to help out the show, please check out the 25% off combo book pack while you're there. But hey, even if you don't feel like getting an awesome discount, how about you just tell a friend about the Trucker Dump podcast and show them how to subscribe and listen if they're not good with technology. I know it can be done because I got a coworker all set up and he's good to go now. Hey, as always, thanks for listening. So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way. Okie doke. Well, this first news story is actually kind of a public service. What am I saying? Hey, you know what NAFTA is, right? The North American Free Trade Agreement. That's the agreement between the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Well, that is kaputty. Well, that is kaput. We are kicking that out, and it's going to be bah. Why can't I talk today? Or any day for that matter. This was approved by the NHTSA, which is the National Highway Traffic. And when you have to fuel up in the rain or when it's freezing outside, the app's mobile fueling feature. Yeah, I can't even say it slow. And one of the first places that came to my mind was the Outpoke. What makes you go from let me rephrase that. Please send me an email at truckdriving. Why can't I remember my email address all of a sudden? If you don't, that is the trade agreement between the Mexico, United States, and Canada that took place. I think it came about around. When did it come around? Yeah.